Hello and welcome to Just Play Tabletop Wargaming. Today we are going to be talking about the Stormcast Eternals Battletome. We're going to do a full review, all the book, all the war scrolls. We've got some lists, maths supported. There's loads of cool stuff. If you want to know everything about Stormcast Eternals, this is the place to be. Look, if you enjoyed the video though, please give us a like. And if you want to support us, you've enjoyed our content, you can do justplaygames.uk. And of course, don't forget to press that subscribe button. So Ian, we're going to talk about the Stormcast Eternals Battletome then today.
Yeah, exciting.
It is. More for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first book of Age of Sigmar 3 along with the Oryx book, which is like kind of a big deal because, we're getting a bit of an insight into what Age of Sigmar 3 books might look like. But obviously for me, I've been waiting for it because I want to play the army for like a number of different reasons. And so it's cool. Yeah, I've been like holding fire on assembling and painting stuff. And I've finally started now, like getting some stuff done. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, good point. Actually, I didn't really give it a thought. It's glazed over the just like you say, first book thing. What are they putting in it? What extra things they're doing? What they aren't doing? There's quite a lot of stuff with that as well. I'm excited as well because I'm buying them dragons. So yeah,
the big ones or the little ones?
Oh, the little ones. Like I just love
the little ones.
So I like the big ones too. I'll probably see what a list looks like before I commit on a big one, but hopefully I can fight taking one or like that. It's hard when you want to do the hobby and still play to win and all that, isn't it? So I don't mind having men in the army either. I'm not like obsessed about it just being a dragon army. It might be pretty cool. So
I'm pretty obsessed with the men. Like I've said before, I think the Keeper of Secrets is my favorite model they've ever done. The plastic one. I think it's been replaced by these Vindicators now.
All right.
Like look, like just showing the pose on them. Where they're like in the sort of phalanx pose, holding the spear and the shield. Like I've got like 30 of them assembled on my desk next to me. I just can't stop looking at them. They're incredible. Absolutely.
It's one of the swooping dragons with swords, so I hope I can justify some swords as well because I like them more than lancers on them. I think they just look better. Even if it's obviously I've seen them, so yeah. Even if I can just play a bit more of a holding one than the offensive one with them, I want
just glue the lancers back and say they've all got lancers. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, the character one uses a sword. There you go.
All the guys can have a sword as well. They're all right.
Yeah, if you don't want to win, of course. That's all good. Right. Okay, let's stop. Close. That's for later. That stuff. So
we're gonna get. Do you want to? You're the man with this. You've really had the big passionate read through, and I was a lot more into the orcs since I own those armies, and obviously you own the Stormcast one. But I'll let you take it away from the top, mate, and we can start going through it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So the first thing to know is that there's no like locked in factions anymore. So you're not getting an artifact and the command trait and all that kind of stuff locked in with your faction anymore. The faction is just a little bonus, and all your artifacts and everything are free to choose. Cruel Boys book's the same.
Yeah.
So that's a new, slightly different thing. So everything we're going to talk about now is actually available as an option, whereas previously they were all kind of irrelevant. So battle traits. Let's start with battle traits. So
can I say about this? Like,
yeah,
there's. I don't know how I feel about this quite yet. Like, my initial reaction to reading was for someone who's buying these a lot for the rules, not a lot of rules in it, as compared to the was, I felt anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was hardly anything like, but is it all good now? Is that better that I'm only reading a few good things?
Yeah.
A bit like, I don't want to say effort, as the word, like to describe how
there's
less there is.
Yeah.
But I guess I quite like the direction it's gone in. I was just a bit like, wow, yeah,
curious.
There's a lot less, man.
I mean, the books we've seen before this, like the Solbright Gravelords book, for example, had a lot less in it, in my opinion, as well. You had all these war scrolls where they've just lost rules and got nothing back, and the war scrolls got blank space, and that was one of the big complaints about that book. And I don't know whether that was written with AOS 3 in mind, but you'd assume it was. by the way it works. And there's this general like streamlining of the rules going on. I think, you know, what you could call streamlining. And a lot of units have just lost rules, not come back to compensate for them. Just had a bunch of text taken out. And I don't think a lot of people are very happy with that. And, you know, I mean, I would agree. I think getting rid of complex rules that cause problems or changing them to be less complex, that's streamlining. If you're just taking stuff off, it just feels a little bit like it's, you know, it's just a little bit weird, and it's like, oh, that unit used to have a cool rule, now it's just a guy with a sword. It's like that seems a little bit over the top. It doesn't seem to help anything. Like, I don't know. I agree. I think,
but you know, on the other side,
a bit less than you would expect.
I don't want to read pages of command traits that do nothing and pages of artifacts that
do nothing
either. You know, and I think
Yeah.
they've done a lot better job on making all this stuff better, haven't they? It's quite different, isn't it? And there is the battle tactics and the grand strategies that are being put back, you know, extra in as well.
I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with the way all that's done, but I think the general feeling of things being streamlined, which in some cases just feels like someone's took a knife to the war scroll and cut a bit out, isn't always that great. But generally, good. I mean, certainly for this book and the Cruel Boys book, I think as well, more of the things are viable. Whether they're competitively good or not is a different matter, but you don't read them and go, one mortal wound, once a battle, pass, never taken that. They're actually worth thinking about. So that is a thing.
The biggest one is non-locked in, locked in artifacts, and that, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, what is the less incentive to not to go out for Warlord now or more? You know,
I like it better this way. I think it makes a lot more sense, and it makes it more interesting building your army as well, not being locked into just that same old generally rubbishy artifact or whatever. You know, I like it.
You know, I guess it always comes back to me. I'm not really that bothered. It's different, right? You know, I'm not just going to do the same thing I've done for the last however many years again. Like, so I'm all for it.
We've seen them make changes before like this, where you think, oh, is this the shape of things to come? And then the next book comes out and it's just not the same anymore. Yeah. You know, we've had this before with like, we've seen battalions get streamlined in some books, and then the next book comes out and it's gone back to old school, loads of battalions that do stuff. And, who knows whether this is the shape of things to come, but it's certainly the shape of things for these two books.
Yeah, decent.
So, excuse me, battle traits, So the new one from Dominion, still got it. Blaze of Glory. When a Stormcast Eternals model dies within 1 inch of an enemy unit, doesn't have to die in melee, just any time it dies within 1 inch of an enemy unit, roll a number of dice equal to the wounds characteristic. You get 1 extra dice if you're a Thunderstrike model, basically irrelevant. For every 6, you do Immortal at the end of the phase. So, obviously good in melee. Also, if you charge someone and they unleash hell at you and they kill a bunch of guys, in theory they can lose a bunch of guys when your Stormcast explode. You know, or if someone else shoots you and you die, you know, so it's a thing. It does a few mortals. Generally, you look at most units of Stormcast, 10 wounds for 5 guys. This is going to do less than 2 mortals on average, so mostly irrelevant. Now and again, you're going to spike some dice. Someone's going to get upset. When you've got 18 wound dragons running around, it's going to do 3 mortals to stuff that kills them, which might be relevant sometimes, but it's not really. Yeah, it's a throw-in. If you forgot that in most games, it probably wouldn't make a massive difference. The real part of the new battle traits, though, is the option. So these Storm Keeps came along in one of the Broken Realms books, and you had the option instead of getting your deep striking Scions of the Storm 9-inch teleport ability, you got the option to be from a Storm Keep, which is the thing in the middle of every city of Sigmar, and that's actually written into the Battletome now. So you can choose to either be a Scions of the Storm army, in which case you get the ability to set stuff up in the sky and bring it down 9 inches away from an enemy at the end of any movement phase. 1 unit per unit you set up on the battlefield, as it's always been, or you can forego that and instead be Watchful Guardians and be a Storm Keep, which gets you coalition rules with Cities of Sigmar. So 1 in every 4 unit can be a Cities of Sigmar unit, and it gains the Storm Keep trait. Additionally, all friendly Stormkeep units gain 1 bravery, while wholly within 12 of any friendly Stormkeep Redeemer units. Redeemers being Liberators, Vindicators, or your melee battle line, basically. That includes your own Stormcast ones as well, not just the cities models. So your own Stormcast go up by 1 bravery, which is a bit of a threshold in this book, because effectively that 1 bravery makes them immune to Battleshock when they're in units of 5, if there's no other modifiers, which is, nice.
Cool, yeah.
The second part of the rule, Shield of Civilization. Now, this is good. This is what's going to make this a real choice in a lot of armies as to which of these 2 you take. All your Stormkeep Redeemer units count as 3 models when on objectives. Now, in the first 2 turns of the game, it's only objectives that are partially or wholly within your territory, but then for the rest of the game, it's every objective. So if you have a look through the missions, the great majority of missions, you've got objectives that are partially within your territory. There's a few where you don't. There's a few where they're just in the middle of the battlefield, and this does nothing for the first 2 turns. But in some missions, all of the objectives on the board are in your territory from the start of the game, because the 2 territories touch each other. So this is sometimes gets turned off, but the great majority of the time, all your Stormcast count as 3 guys, which is really powerful if you've got the units that can use this. And in addition to that, whenever anyone charges you and you roll a dice, and on a 3 up, they take D3 mortals while you're within 6 inches of an objective, which is also not nothing, especially if you've got lots of minimum size units Stormcast over the course of a battlefield. People are going to do quite a lot of wounds themselves. So this is a really good battle trait.
It is, yeah.
What do you think?
Good. No, yeah, fantastic. Like, I think it's a good choice between the 2, right?
Yeah, it really is. When I've been building armies,
strong.
I'm trying to build armies that don't want to use the deep strike, so that I can have men that count as 3 models.
Yeah.
Because, this army's always got the same problem, and it has in this book as well. It's low model count, but also low wound count because of how expensive stuff is. And being a 2 wound model for a lot of points ends up with you not having a lot of bodies on the board for objective. And this reverses that. It means you got more than most people. And in fact, one of the current best tournament armies, which is Giants, Sons of Behemoth, you will have more models than them on objectives from turn 1, as long as this is on. Yeah. So, it's although you will degrade and they don't, which is their powerful thing, but, 2 units of men, 260 points is 30 models on an objective. That's big. That's big game, especially since they're quite hard to kill. So super interesting for army building, that, I think.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Like I said, immortal thing's decent as well, and
it is, yeah.
Ties with the one you just mentioned that doesn't really do a lot, but more and more and more, isn't it? So
yeah. And it's good if you don't want to take an Alpha Strike style army or something that's going to use that deep striking, you've got an option to do something different with your army. So it's good. I really like that. And
it's not like there isn't. It's not like there isn't striking stuff as well. Changed to a big part of the army now, which gives you loads of deep striking all game. So
yeah, it's awesome. All right, so onto enhancements. Right, so there's less of these than there used to be, as you mentioned before. So there's 4 command traits. Now, one thing I don't like about the way these are done in this book is they're very tied to very specific things. So your actual choices are super limited in reality, which isn't great for this building, and maybe is not a thing that I like very much about this book. So first we got Shock and Awe. You can only take this if you're Scions of the Storm. And it's the same as the old battle trait they used to have, where if your general's on the battlefield now, when you deep strike something with Scions of the Storm, people get -1 to hit them until the end of the turn, only for your turn, same as it used to be.
Yeah.
We've also got Staunch Defender, doesn't do the same as what it used to do. Now, this is only for Stormkeep Redeemer units. When you roll the number of mortal wounds for the ability we just talked about, when someone charges you, you can re-roll the number of mortals if the unit is within 12 of the general. Pretty crap. Probably not going to want to take that. This one's really good. I really like this one. Envoy of the Heavens. If a friendly Stormcast Eternals model is slain wholly within 12 of the general, only the model has got to be wholly within 12 of the general. +1 to save rolls for the slain model's unit until the end of the phase. So when you got people shooting, like trying to focus a unit down, the first unit shoots, kills a guy, the unit's now +1 save for the rest of the turn. That's really good. like potentially really powerful. Or if you're in like less important in a melee because you don't have multi-way melees quite as often, but it stops people focusing down your men quite as easily if they're using things where your save matters. So that one's quite cool.
Don't you think though, like if I was to target a unit that I wanted to shoot down, and maybe I shoot it with my best shooting unit, and you might already want to stack your save bonuses at that point to protect them, which then makes that redundant because you can only get better than plus. You can't get better than +1, and you've already got all out defense on the unit from defending against the first one.
Yeah, it depends on the rend as well, doesn't it? But I mean, I think you're seeing quite a few shooting units with rend 2 or more, so the stack will still help. You know, you're seeing these new cruel boys that have got rend 2 on some of their attacks and that kind of stuff. So I still think it's good. I mean, I'm only comparing it against other options that you've potentially got. You know, it's not stellar, but it's quite cool when you're talking about stacking.
You know, if you've already got some pluses on the unit, it may not do a lot. You know?
Yeah. But on the flip side, I mean, a lot of the armies that you're playing, and we'll talk about this later, are using like MSU units of 5 Vindicators. So the save bonuses can be kind of bad uses of command points because, you know, you stick them on one unit of 5, they just shoot a different unit of 5. So it's not always that relevant, whereas this is just free on everything. You know, like, and it also depends. I mean, if they've got a unit of 30 Sentinels, your 5 guys are going to be dead in one shot anyway. So stacking the save doesn't matter. But, you know, as command abilities go, given that the other 2 maybe not relevant or not very good, or we're looking at as generic ones, potentially an option. The next one's the best. The next one's super, super good. Only for a certain type of army, though. If the general's a monster and is on the battlefield, no range, -1 to wound for all melee weapon attacks that target friendly Stormcast Eternals monsters. So we got the new Dragon Riders coming out. We just talked about. We got Star Drakes, new dragons, loads and loads of stuff. Army-wide -1 to wound. Largely, that's going to be fantastic command trait.
Pretty good.
Oh, there you go. So outside of the general command traits, you know, a lot of the time you're going to want to take that Envoy of the Heavens if you haven't got monsters. You know, if you've got nothing to stick your general command traits, that's why I say it's decent. I mean, it could be better, but it's not a terrible command trait, I don't think. All right, artifacts. So there's 3 categories and they've got 3 in each. So this is definitely cut down, but I guess on the one hand you could say, why don't we just have 6 good ones? Like we used to have 6, but most of the time you used to get like 1 good one or something. So I guess if these are all good, it's still in a decent place. So some worth mentioning now that there's 3 weapons, none of them very good in my opinion. Don't think any of them are worth taking, so we're probably going to dodge all of those. There's some very good armors though. The first is Drake Scale armor. Now this gives you the ability to reroll save rolls, which has largely been phased out of the game. So anytime you get access to it, it's worth looking at. You reroll save rolls against any attack, including range weapons, that have got a damage characteristic of 2 or more, which is really, really powerful. What it doesn't say is how you account for like D3s or D6s and stuff, which I'm hoping they will FAQ.
Hasn't got a damage characteristic of 2 though, right? So right now, nothing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's a very raw interpretation of raw, right?
What else are we meant to do?
I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, it just fundamentally doesn't work, does it? Like, what's a D6? A D6 is nothing. A D6 is anyway.
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, even if they FAQ it so it doesn't work against D3s and D6s, it works against loads of stuff, and it's a reroll and probably a unit that's going to have a 2+ save because it's easy to do in this army. So that's quite good, regardless of how that shakes out. Then we got the Mirror Shield, which is my favorite. Bearer can't be shot unless the attacking units were in 9. Boss, buff character, can't shoot him, or dragon, can't shoot him until it's too late, bar the unleash hell that you're going to get, which is ways round, etc.
That's brilliant.
It's very good. Yeah, very good. It used to be just -2 to it, so it's even better. So they're really good. And then artifacts of the Tempest. So we've got Quicksilver Draft, which used to be an order artifact, which is once a battle, you go first, start of the combat phase. which is a nice to have. We got Luckstone. Now, I've seen quite a few people being down on this. Once a battle, you just choose the result of a roll, 1d6 or 2d6. A lot of people being quite down on this artifact, but look, the whole army deep strike, so this is an automatic charge for any unit that you want. Like
the charge
deep
one's
strike,
boss.
Yeah, deep strike or Star Drake, charge 12 inches with fly, get to any target I want, maybe even if it's screened if my base fits. Amazing. Brilliant artifact option there. So yeah, that's also really good. So I mean that's 4 artifacts, plus obviously you've got the Amulet of Destiny, which is going to be super popular in this army as well. That's a lot of artifact choice for competitive lists. I think I've used, bar the Quicksilver draft. Unfortunately, Stormcast don't really have any Stone Cold Killer melee heroes that you really want to buff, except the ones that are named characters, so you can't give them artifacts. So buffing stuff with like going first in combat doesn't really help a lot. But you know, the other artifacts are all good. Being immune to shooting in the current meta particularly is just very, very good.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some good artifacts there, and I'm always, I think I mentioned a bit earlier on, how incentivized are they to chase Warlord? You know, for extra
the Warlord core battalion you're talking about.
Yeah, the Warlord battalion.
Yeah.
You know, how incentivized are you to not go 1 drop, you know, or 2, or as low as you can, to go bazillions, to include more heroes in your army. And I think there's quite a lot in here that might want to make you do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think when you've got an army where you can put a lot of it off the table to keep it safe, if you don't go first, that works a lot better as well. So you can, you know, have all these things, super buffed, some extra artifacts, and just keep most of your men safe on turn 1. One of the guys you deploy is immune to shooting, you know, like whatever it is that you want to do. So it is interesting that's an option for sure. And good artifacts as well, right? Like reroll and saves. Very good on like a Star Drake or something like that. Okay, so we'll skip the spell laws and the prayers. We'll come to them when it's time to talk about the people that are going to use them, so we can talk about them in context. And we just get on to MAMP traits. Now, these suffer from the same problem as the command abilities. There's 6 of them, but they're all tied to something very specific. So most of the mounts you haven't really got many options on, which is a little bit of a shame. And there's no way to get more than 1 either. So Griff charges Dracoths or Dracolines. Dracoths are the new, all the dragons are called Dracoths now, the ones that aren't Star Drakes. So all the new dragons.
What's a Dracoline then?
What's that? Dracolines.
Dracoline, the new one?
No, Dracolines are the one that come out with the Sacrosanct Chamber. The ones that are like slightly bigger Dracoths, slightly wider, slightly bigger Dracoths. Sorry, no, I'm getting my thingies mixed up. No, Dracoline's not the new one. The new one is Draconith. Sorry, it's slightly different again. Yeah.
Okay.
Dracoline's the Sacrosanct one. So this is all of the old ones, basically. They can pile in 6 and they're eligible to fight from 6. Good ability. Again, unfortunately, none of them are particularly great in combat, so not really amazing ways to abuse it. But sometimes there's nothing better. We got Light of the Young Stars, which is for Star Drakes only. Now, these are interesting. These replace Monstrous Rampages. So this is another Monstrous Rampage option, which is quite cool. So you pick an enemy within 1 when you Monstrous Rampage. On a 3 or more, they get -1 to hit for the rest of the combat phase. You stack that up with the command trait, -1 to hit and wound. Quite good. Also, interestingly, I don't think there's that many great Monstrous Rampages, to be honest. I think the one that removes command abilities is obviously very good. Outside of that, doing D3 mortal wounds, I don't think is phenomenal all the time. So having access to something else you can do if you've got multiple monsters, I think is quite good. It's not like
I think they're not that exciting, you know, as it goes.
Yeah.
It is cool stomping on people.
It is, yeah. Celestial Instincts, unit can retreat and shoot or charge in the same turn. I like this, but it's a shame that they've got that shoot or charge in, because Star Drakes have a really good ranged attack now, and you sort of want to retreat and do both. And this sort of ties them into only one, which is, you know, in my opinion, it wouldn't have been too good to say they can shoot and charge. There you go. Envoy of Lightning. So when you set them up, the Annihilator's ability, where you do D3 mortals on a 4 up to anything within 10 when you deploy this, basically gives them that, which is not fantastic. We got Scintillating Trail, which is -1 to unbinding rolls for spells cast by friendly Stormcast wizards for enemies. So enemies get -1 to their unbinds. So it's kind of like +1 to cast in some ways, without actually having +1 to cast, which is, again, okay. And then the last one is Thunderous Presence. So this is another monstrous rampage. This one's for Draconiths, so the new dragons. On a 3-up, the enemy unit can't receive commands in the Battleshock phase this turn, which is good.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's
really obviously, good. If you don't know, Raw doesn't do that, so it's pretty good, that one. I do like that one.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So these are, there's some decent options there. You don't get many options depending on what type of mount you've got. But decent stuff, particularly the 2 rampage ones are quite good, I think. Tied to Star Drakes and Draconiths.
Retreat and shoot and charge, though, right?
That one's decent. They shoot or charge, not shoot and charge. That's what, because there's 2 units.
Yeah, whatever. But
there's 2 units you'd use that on, and both of them are like half ranged, half melee. So you kind of only get like half a unit. It is good. It is good though. I just think you would take one of the rampage ones before it most of the time on the units where you're going to want to use it.
Maybe,
I have got it in some armies for lack of anything better. I mean, on some mediocre combat units, I've got that in some armies. I just think it's a bit on the weakish side for me.
I don't know. Maybe you give up a breath for that. It's pretty good. You don't want to be stuck, do you? So
it's I mean, I think it's good. I just don't think there's any units that's that good on. Really, is the like units that you're going to want to take that are competitively good enough just don't match up with this that well. But that said, even with a mediocre combat unit, there's always a good reason to retreat and charge. There's always times when retreating and charging is good. So yeah, fair enough. So they're okay. They're a bit more interesting than it does an extra damage on the charge or something like that, aren't they? They're a little bit more involved.
Yeah, definitely. They're decent. Some good cool ones in there. Yeah. Like you say, there's a lot of effort. There's a lot more effort into how different they all are, right? There's some new things in there. Maybe it's just things that we're only seeing for the first time because Age of Sigmar 3's enabled them, and now every book will have on a 3+ you roar in the command phase, but
I'm sure they will. I'm sure, yeah. All right, so then we've got a new thing, unique enhancements for the army. I'm guessing every army is going to... Oh, no, I forget if Cruel Boys have got this specifically or not.
They didn't have.
Unique enhancements for the army. So these are command abilities. When you pick your army, you pick one of these command abilities, and they're all once a battle. So you are going to need a command point to use them, but they all do something unique once. The best one is...
It's a unique enhancement, right? So you can never take 2 of these. Is that the thing?
It doesn't really... it doesn't say that anywhere. Like, you can't do that. I think if you were to get an extra enhancement, you could take an extra one of these. I think it's just the category is called unique enhancements. I think it's unique to the Stormcast. But that's a good shout. That could probably do with clearing up whether when we get an extra enhancement, can we take a second one of these? Is a good question. I don't think
I'm reading back to the start, the bit that you usually just like sort of skim over about how to build an army and all that right now, and it doesn't say anything about it. It just says command abilities available to units in a Stormcast Eternals army.
Yeah, it says when you pick a Stormcast Eternals army, you can pick one of the following command abilities to use during a battle. In fact, it doesn't actually refer to it as an enhancement outside of the title, so it could probably do with a little bit of clarification. But I think you can see how it's meant to work anyway.
Maybe we're just getting caught up on the unique word, as in it's like meant to be unique to Stormcast, not like like you say.
Well, mechanically that means not, and it's a title, right? So it doesn't really make any difference. All right, so call for aid. Once a battle, when a Redeemer unit gets destroyed with 5 or fewer models, pay a command point, get it back anywhere within 12 of the Stormcast hero, 9 from enemy units. Great.
Classic.
Yeah. not only does it give you a unit back for free, but it also puts it somewhere on the board, which might be really important. Drop it on an objective near an enemy, whatever it is, which is quite cool.
Only once per battle. It never used to be like that, right?
Yeah, all of these are once per battle. All these unique commands are all once a battle. They're all like replacements for old abilities in a lot of ways. You'll see as we go through them. The next one's Steadfast March, which lets you run and charge a Stormcast unit once a battle. The next one's Thunderbolt Volley, which lets you shoot a Justicar or Angelos unit in the hero phase once a battle. Next one's Unleash Thy Hatred, which is you pick a Paladin unit, +1 to its attacks characteristic until the end of the phase. Not very good. And then Final Thunderstrike gives you +1 to rolls for your when you die to do mortals till the end of the phase. So most of them not very good. Realistically, shooting the hero phase 1 is a good one if you're going to have a unit worth doing it on. Get 5 guys back is a good one if you've got a unit worth doing it on. And in some builds, you might be looking to leverage the run and charge one, turn 1.
Run and charge dragons and that, right?
Yeah.
The final Thunderstrike thing, does that mean 3+ for some things, or is that
no
4+?
5+? It's a 6 base. This is the one where when they die, not the one where when you get charged.
Yeah, but don't Redeemers or something get a bonus to that anyway?
No. Thunderstrike armor gives you 1 extra dice when you die. That's it.
Nice. Right.
It's very, very minimal. Yeah, these are interesting. There's another interesting mechanic in these as well, where if a Lord or a Draconith is issuing the order, it's got a range of 18. But if it's a Knight issuing the order, it's only got a range of 12. Because, the Stormcast, a lot of the Stormcast are either Knights or Lords. And this is kind of cool when you think, okay, yeah, the Lords are better at it because they're bigger. But then if you work it backwards, really, all them Knight characters, they cost exactly the same points or more as any other character does. So what it actually is, when you think about it, it's actually a nerf to the Knights rather than the other way around. Like, there's no particular reason why some of them should just be worse at it than others. To me, to start with, I was like, this is cool. Some of them are more lordy than the rest. And then I was like, actually, just a bunch of my guys have reduced range when they still cost me the same points as any other hero does. No, I thought it was cool.
Too much about the fuss on that, but yeah.
I'll be more upset about that when we get to talking about spells, though. It's worse with spells.
Okay.
Which you're doing a bit. All right. So Storm Hosts now. This is the fun bit. So all these now are just an ability, basically, and but more importantly than that, in some cases, is what battle line they enable, which is there's quite a lot now. So Hammer's a Sigmar. You get a 6+ ward when your unit is wholly within 12 of an objective. Fine.
Not very exciting, but they're tied to a lot of battle line, aren't they?
Yeah, bit on the weak side for me. That like a 6+ ward could have just been a 6+ ward, like without the restriction, probably. And if you're going to have a restriction, they probably could have had like +1 bravery or something as well to make it a little bit more exciting. But is what it is. These make all the Dracoths, so all the guys riding Dracoths, the classic guys like Fulminators and Concussors and all that kind of stuff, their battle line and Hammer's a Sigmar. And one of those units is very good and maybe the best in the book, which is super cool. Yeah. So bear that in mind when we talk about them later. Hallowed Knights. When a friendly Hallowed Knights Redeemer model, so not any Hallowed Knight, just the battle line, is slain within 3 of an enemy unit, roll a dice on a 4-up, it can fight before it's removed from play. Pretty dull. 1 battle line guy on a 4-up gets to fight.
Any battle line unlocks for them?
No, they don't. Oh, sorry, yeah. No, they don't unlock any battle line either. It's like the dullest thing. The most interesting thing these do is one of the characters guards a Steel Soul, has had a big buff in this book, and he only affects Hallowed Knights. So there is a reason to take these, but really he's the allegiance ability, not this. This is kind of bland and just not very good, frankly. So then we've got Celestial Vindicators. So these guys are driven by vengeance. Start of the combat phase, pick a unit that made a charge. If it rolls a 6, it gets 2 hits instead of 1, which is also a little bit on the bland side. Doesn't enable any battle line. But you know, the new dragons and all that kind of stuff can have any of these allegiances depending on what you're in. So them big dragons getting double hits on a 6 could be a thing. Maybe. I doubt you're going to see this though, very much. It's not very good, really. It doesn't do a lot for you. Anvils of the Heldenhammer. These are the grim sort of tomb warrior faction. I really love their ability.
These were the shooting ones last time, right?
What's that?
These were the shooting ones last time.
Yeah, they used to have the fight or shoot in the hero phase, basically, yeah. End of the charge phase, you roll 2 dice for every enemy unit that's within 1 of at least of any friendly Anvils of the Heldenhammer units. If you beat their bravery, you negate the first 2 wounds caused by attacks by that enemy unit in the combat phase, which, if it wasn't tied to that bravery roll, that would be good. But there's too many armies with bravery 10 defaults. Or, I mean, even bravery 7 doesn't even go off, you know, half the time. It's got to be greater than the enemy unit's bravery. So
some big character wants to whack you, which is pretty common now. They're usually high bravery.
Yeah, even like more crushers and stuff are bravery 8. Like on a lot of those like heroes, thunder tusks, all that kind of stuff. I mean, even if they're 7, this mostly doesn't do anything, which is a bit of a shame because it's a cool, interesting, unique ability. If it had have just been rolled a little bit differently, even if it was just like on a 4-up or something, it would have been sound. But unfortunately, not very competitive. I don't think that option. Also, doesn't enable any battle line, unlike Knights Excelsior, which is the next one. So these are the Paladin faction. All of the Paladins are battle line for these. The old ones and the new ones, the Annihilators and the Annihilators with the big hammers, they're all battle line for this faction, which is good because some of those units are very good now. And this buff works really well for them. So start of the combat phase, once a turn, enemy turn as well. You pick a Paladin unit on the board. When it fights, you pick an enemy unit within 1. And as long as that unit's got more models than your Paladins, which it is going to have most of the time, unless you're fighting against giants and stuff, you get +1 to hit and wound. And almost all, or maybe just all of those Paladins are on 3s and 3s, bar the new guys with the hammers. So they go to 2s and 2s. So good buff. And it will work most of the time.
Yeah, that's exceptional. Yeah, really good.
Yeah. The fact it makes them more battle line as well when at least one of the units is very, very good is really good. So that's going to be a good faction. Celestial Warbringers. Once a phase, you can reroll 1 hit or wound roll or a save roll once a phase. I think this is a really good default, this, for me. For armies that don't fit into any of the other ones, you know, you reroll on a save roll in the enemy shooting phase, a save roll in the combat phase, maybe a save roll in the hero phase if they do anything, and you're getting to reroll rolls in your shooting phase and the combat phase and theirs as well. It's a lot of rerolls every round. You know, you may be looking at like 4+ rerolls per round. And especially since Stormcast got so many things that go off on a 2, hit rolls, wound rolls, save rolls, those rerolls can be like virtually guaranteed to be a success. So, you know, rerolls, obviously, the better your base roll is, the better the reroll is. I like this. It's pretty.
That's okay. Like you say, so far we've had a Super Paladin focus one, very lean into a build. Gambles one I don't like. Vindicators one maybe okay. Like that's, like you say, a bit comparable to it, isn't it? And I guess the Ward one, but
the Ward one's a pretty default one, especially since so many characters are Hammers of Sigmar as well, right? So you're going to see that one a lot just for that reason. But this one, Celestial Warbringers, when I've been making lists which are like mixed shooting and melee and don't have any particular focus on any particular unit type, this is just good because you can always find a use for it somewhere every turn, multiple times. I like it. I think that's really good. I think it's deceptively good, actually. Tempest Lords. These are guys who like flying, right? So these make Prosecutors battle line, and Prosecutors are pretty good now, my opinion. Whenever you do a charge with a Tempest Lords unit that can fly, you can reroll 1 of the dice on the charge roll, which is super good. Especially when you're deep striking, especially when your Prosecutors roll 3d6 for their charges. You know, especially when you've got all these Star Drakes and these new big giant dragons, etc. Rerolling 1 dice is super powerful.
That's really good, that one.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? Yeah, and it makes Prosecutors
I'm
battle line,
let's go.
which are the cheapest unit in the book as well, which is notable.
Who are, sorry?
Prosecutors, the guys with the wings.
Yeah, they're pretty good now. I looked at their scroll. Looks cool.
Yeah, which I own 9 of. Painted. Amazing. So happy. Right. So yeah, that's a good one. And Astral Templar is the last one that was in the preview. Immune to monstrous rampages, your whole army. I think that will get better and worse over time, but right now that is certainly a decent default.
Yeah, they've
as well.
There's a lot of small ones there you might want to pick from. See.
Yeah.
Maybe there's
small but decent. Sorry, they also make Vanguard Hunters and Paladors battle line Astral Templars as well, and Vanguard Hunters at least are a pretty good unit as well. Certainly a nice battle line, a nice unit for taking your battle line slots. So yeah, good one that for sure.
Good. They give you a really easy battle tactic too as well, which is normally one that
getting your opponent's deployment.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a pain, or
yeah.
Sometimes
there's so many ways to do that. To do that one in this book, actually, I've been thinking about that one a lot. You know, just deep strikes and flying guys, and there's loads of ways to do that easily. So then we've got new grand strategies and battle tactics. Now, when this happened in 40k, when we got a bunch of missions in 40k, and then the books started getting their own, it was a bit of a problem because new books have just got more options to score victory points than old books. Which is, you know, these are definitely options that other armies don't have available to them, but most of them are very tame, bordering on bad, I think, for these.
Agree. So far, so good.
Yeah, 100% that will not be the case for every book that they release. There's going to be somewhere like some armies are going to get one auto-complete battle tactic for their army that gives them an advantage in the games. You know, it's going to be a while until that shakes out balanced, I think. These ones are pretty dull. So grand strategies to start with. Draconith Defiance. You complete this at the end of the game if the only heroes on the battlefield are friendly Draconith, Star Drake, or Dracoth units. Not great. Certainly not with the amount of heroes roaming around the game right now. Wouldn't be taking that. Pillars of Victory. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if the only battle line units on the battlefield are friendly Redeemer units. I don't know why you would pick this one, since there is just a better one in the defaults, which is just if all your battle line are alive, you don't have to kill theirs. I don't think this one's been thought through very much.
Or they're so just flavor driven that we, like you said, you're worried about them having an impact at some point. Maybe they never will.
Yeah.
They're that focused on what you've just highlighted that we don't see that, because this, like you said, that is just, you know, obviously it's pointless, like for a match play person.
Yeah. I think given that, you know, the way Redeemers work and the fluff of the Stormkeeps and all that, it's great to see one that involves you defending the realms. I just don't know why it's strictly worse than one that exists. Maybe when those ones cycle in future, this one will become relevant, but still quite hard to achieve. Last one is Sacred Charge. Ties in with Cities of Sigmar a bit. I really like about this book the way they have tied it in. When the battle ends, you complete this if there's 2 or more friendly Cities of Sigmar units on the battlefield. Competitively not great, but you know, you might get the odd build now and again, potentially, where you'd think about it, but unlikely. I like the tie-in though. Not everything has to be competitive. We all know this, right? But I mean, none of those 3 are. So there you go.
Good sign, I think.
I think it is, yeah. Battle tactics, not quite as bad, these. So the first one, Pioneers of Realms. If all of the objectives wholly within your opponent's territory are contested by friendly Cities of Sigmar units at the end of the turn, you score this one. Bit difficult, I think. Get them crossbowmen running down the field.
That should give you like 3 or 10 extra VP if you do that one.
Yeah. I'm going to do this with Griffins at some point. I mean, you can only take 1 in 4 units as Cities of Sigmar. And this is an expensive army. So how do they expect you to have more than 2 Cities of Sigmar units in your starting army to be even able to contemplate doing this? Sometimes it's beyond me.
It's just just a boss flex. You know, there's like one in their side, right? And you're like, we'll conquer now, but you know what? Pioneers of the Realms, and your opponent's
Run
like,
them
what?
crossbowmen forward.
Well, that?
Yeah. All right, so no challenge too great. You complete this tactic if an enemy hero is slain by wounds caused by an attack made in melee by a friendly Redeemer unit this turn. This one's all right. Got an enemy hero. He's in combat with your battle line. He's about to die. You stab him. He's dead. You score the thing. That's a really good one.
That one is good.
Yeah. If you're running Redeemers, obviously, which you won't always be. Hammer Strike Assault. You pick a hero in your opponent's starting army on the battlefield with a wounds characteristic of 10 or more. That's got 0 wounds allocated to it. So an enemy monster with no wounds, basically. If you kill him in this turn, you score the tactic. That's also all right as well.
That's really good.
Yeah. Especially since we
I
have
think
got
so.
some...
You know, it just opens up more. You know, yes, there's something like that. But if you just want to kill stuff, okay, well, there's another one to kill now, right? And it's like a monster, often. So, I'm going to kill the monster. I'm going to kill the monster. I'm going to an extra bit of extra victory point just for doing that. Fight against giants, and you've killed the battle line, killed the monster, you've killed the general. Let's kill another one.
Yeah. Or you fight against people running, filling an army out with like smaller monsters for VP reasons, or against like the new Auric. Aurics have just got guys with 12 wounds, like the guy standing on the back of that Trog thing. That's not a monster. 12 wounds and a 4-up save. Easy to focus and kill that if you want to. So that's a good one. Lightning Shattered Morale. A unit in your opponent's starting army with a bravery of 10 or more. You complete this tactic if any of them flee this turn. Not great, but in some circumstances, you can auto complete that, right? Like if you know that if they got a unit that's not in range of a hero, it's got bravery 10, and you can kill 10 models. That's an auto complete, and it's not very hard to do on the type of unit you would.
They have to flee.
Yeah.
You have to take a test.
What's that?
It says flee, so they have to run away.
That's what I mean. As long as you kill 10 models and the bravery 10, you auto complete this. As long as they're not in range of.
Oh, sorry. I'm presuming you meant a 10 model. Apologies.
Yeah. No, sorry. I'm talking about it's not going to come up much, but it's an option there for a free battle tactic, basically against some armies.
You've got a raw that works against Battleshock phase as well, you can stop inspiring.
Well, you wouldn't do that, would you? Because you wouldn't want to rest your battle tactic on a 3-up raw going off, probably, unless you were desperate. But I don't think you're going to be desperate with all these. Draconith Destruction. Pick a unit in the enemy starting army with 10 or more models, and you complete if your Star Drake, Dracoth, or Draconith destroys the unit this turn. Not very hard to do with some of these new Draconiths. Enemy unit of 10, Arcanauts, 20 zombies. Like any of these units people put on the table. If your dragons, which is going to be a lot of your army, sometimes kill it. Points. Good one again.
Very good.
Yeah, and the last one's a matter of honor. So you pick a monster in your opponent's starting army that's on the battlefield. And if one of your Draconiths... Oh, I thought this had to be full wounds as well when I read this one. You pick a monster in your opponent's starting army that's on the battlefield. If one of your Draconiths or Star Drakes kill it, you get the battle tactic.
Boss.
I misread that one. So, unlike the grand strategies, plenty of options for battle tactics there.
Too many. Too many. So it changes how I changes loads for me. Like for me, I'm off battle tactics being thing for scoring, bar just playing in the game now. Like I'm not into them as a tournament tiebreaker at all. Like. Even without more, like the weekend just gone, I was like, and the one that reran, like this doesn't do anything. It's just doing some tick box stuff. So
because you should be scoring them almost all the time.
Yeah. And now there's an army that that has more options to achieve more than other people as well. It'll be ages till every army gets enough to catch up, So. Maybe I think it might get a little bit unfair. Say that you should be incentivized by how many battle tactics you've done now.
Yeah.
And to find something else, move on to something else or whatever.
Certainly now that they've released them in books, I don't think that's a fair thing to do anymore. Like, for sure. I agree with you. Yeah, we'll change that. Definitely.
Yeah, I think so now, like.
Yeah. All right, so core battalions then. Lastly, we've got some core battalions. None of these are brilliant. First one is Redemption Brotherhood. So minimum 3, maximum 6 troops at unified 1-drop. So that's decent in some circumstances, but because you can't put heroes in it, for me, that will never get you to a 1-drop army because you can't put heroes in it. And most of the time when you're running a 2-drop army, you've got a spare hero for the second battalion anyway. So there's only really micro advantages in this, like you stick 3 of your troops in it, and that's the thing you give away in your 2-drop. Like, it's a very small thing for me.
These are all rubbish.
Yeah, they are, yeah. Brotherhood command, 2 leaders and 3 troops, gives you strategists for the extra CP. Once a battle, no reason you'd use that over just going 1-drop or trying to get Warlord. And then Soul Strike Brotherhood contains artillery, which is terrible in this book, so also won't be using that either. So there you go. That's all the non-War Scroll parts of the book. Generally, I think plenty of fine options.
There's quite a lot of difference between the grand strategies, the battle tactics, and the core battalions there. Core battalions, grand strategies, whatever. Battle tactics, though, big buff to this army compared to others.
Yeah.
Certain builds, maybe.
And that is a temporary thing in theory, but, that's the tournament world we live in, is a world of temporary, what FAQ we play and what's getting nerfed, so certainly a little advantage for them for a while. But from an army building point of view, I think plenty of stuff to play with there as well, right? Plenty of different little things to choose.
Agree, and not to labour the point, like 40k banned a lot of army-specific ones. Some tournaments did ban the use of them, early on when some armies had them and a lot of others as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, back to your point. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I quite like this small layout, the small amount of command traits, or how much crossover, how much more like pick and choose and put it together you can of what you want as well.
More options rather than being locked into that, like, here's your command trait and artifact you've got to take.
It feels driven by the war scrolls and the units more than what allegiance you're picking, though.
Yeah, to do some trick. Yeah.
Like you said, it's this one gets these battle lines. This is only on this command trait goes on this unit. This artifact on this unit, etc. And it's like what you're gonna have in your army. What units are the best? Looks like to me a little bit like the driving force of building lists a bit. Like you've built some, so I'll hear what you say later.
I've built so many lists. I actually, all the maths I've been doing around shooting units, I did that because I built so many lists. I was like, I can't choose between these. I need to get down to the raw numbers to figure out which one I need to play. So yeah, it's good. There's lots of options. I think on the battle tactics thing, I think that was a problem in 40k to a large extent because at the time Marines got these things. They were also the best army by far and away. And I don't think Stormcast are going to be the best army by a long shot in the game right now. So I don't think that that's necessarily going to be a thing that needs to happen. I think like the book is balanced enough. It's not like the top tier book compared to just like Lumineth or something. And, you got to remember as well, I think on the flip side, older books now have got stuff that newer books haven't, like access to more stuff, traits that do a lot more compared to these tamed ones. So maybe there's a balance thing in there. And I don't think I'd be in favor of banning bits of this new book until someone can show me that this army's actually bent and needs something changing, which I don't think is going to be the case. Argument for balance. Should we talk about War Scrolls?
No, let's stop.
We'll just stop there. Yeah, thanks for listening. No. Okay, War Scrolls. So there's a few that we're going to skip. Any War Scroll that we just don't talk about isn't a competitive War Scroll. There are quite a few War Scrolls in this book, which are, they released a model, right, at some event, and it's got a model, and you're not going to use it in any competitive army, so we're not going to waste your time talking about it. But if you don't play competitive, then all the War Scrolls are kind of cool. They've at least made a lot of the heroes a little bit better in combat and a bit more heroic now. but not competitively playable. So we're just going to do these in order. Celestin Prime, largely the same as he was before, except he's gained a 4-up ward save. Pretty good. Doubled his wounds.
Pretty massive.
And he's stayed the same points as well. He's still 325. So in a world where everyone else is going up in points and he stayed the same, that's quite good. He's had his choosing your role thing changed to what seems to be the new format for roll mess now, where you just pick the result before you roll it. So, and it's now specifically run or charge, save, hit or wound. So obviously for him, it's mostly a 12-inch charge on a turn he drops. And he's still got his mortal wound staff, 24 inches, 3-inch blast of D3 mortals as well. I think you used to have to roll for that to see if it hit people. Now it's auto D3 mortals. Although don't quote me on that.
I can't recall.
This guy used to be like you drop him and then he kills something and then he dies. And now he's got 16 wounds effectively with his ward save and a 3-up save. And you can obviously make him a 2-up and whatever. I think he's very good now. And I've never been a fan of Celestin Prime. I always thought he was a trap and was overplayed by the people who used to run him, but I think he's great now.
Nice, boss. Amazing. 4+ ward. You can heroically heal him as well, both times round. He's just 16 wounds. It's more he's got the 4 wards. So every time you heal more, it's more wounds. Guys,
it effectively doubles your healing, having a 4-up ward, because every wound you heal back is worth 2 wounds. So as long as he doesn't get spiked down and you fail a load of 4+, which is the downside, very good stat line.
Is Ren 3 stat as well? Pretty important right now as well. So and then he's got the 2+ to wound side, and it's a 3+ to hit. That's really good as well. You see units that like 2 to hit, 3s to wound. You want it the other way because +1 to hit so easy to get now. So he's
on the flip
sweet.
side, on the turn when he goes heroic turbo +1 save, the +1 to wound doesn't do anything from that ability. So there is flip side to it, isn't there? On that.
The what? Sorry.
When you use your finest hour, heroic moment, finest hour, whatever it's called, you get +1 to wound and save, so that gets wasted. But pretty much all the heroes now are 3s to hit, 2s to wound. Interestingly, but yeah, you are going to give him +1 to hit, aren't you? On the turn he drops anyway, so he's great. You're going to see him a lot. Good, what I like about him as well is the army is very defensive in certain setups with the redeemers and the walking up the battlefield, counting as 3 models. And when you've got a model that you want to leave off the table for at least a turn, preferably 2, and you've got a big defensive army that's just sitting there, that's like works quite well because, obviously your defensive army can sit there while your opponent's trying to come at you and shift you off objectives. They've got to do some level of exposing stuff from behind that they don't really want to do. And then he comes in and rips them to bits, ideally, while they're trying to push through your walls of high save men. So I think there's lots of ways to use them. If you're not just using them as an assassin, which is the classic way people use them, he becomes just come and get me. If you don't get me in time, as your ticking clock, the Celestin Prime is going to land and clean a bunch of your guys off the table. So yeah, very good unit. Come out of it very well. The next units are the 2 new dragons, which are interesting. So they're both quite similar. So they're both 600 points, 18 wounds and a 3-up save, move 14. So not quite fast enough for guaranteed everything turn 1. If you want to run them across the battlefield, but of course they can deep strike. So they don't come with an allegiance ability, so they do get the one from your army, which doesn't always happen with unique characters. So they've got Ancient Masters. So I'll talk about the commonalities first. Ancient Master of War. Enemy units in melee take 1 attack off their profiles, which is really good. The particular thing I like about this is the built-in Archaon putting you in the sword protection, because now he's got to roll 2 6s on 3 dice, which is much less scary to have to fight against with your 600-point monster. But that's just generally a very good debuff. Less good against stuff like Giants, where the main profile they're hitting with it's got like 10 attacks. But, it does matter for like the 2 attack stomps and stuff. Good debuff anyway, if you're in melee. Blazing Tempest, so this breathe and fire, 18-inch range. Roll a dice. On a 1 or 2, 1 mortal wound, 3 or 4 D3, 5 or 6 D6 mortal wounds. Sound. Little sniper shot. Good. Not as blazing tempesty as you would expect it to be, maybe. I was a little bit disappointed that didn't do more from the name. I expected an AoE or something. It's a bit weak, I think, for a 600-point model. Calamitous Tail. It's all right. Calamitous Tail. This is a big one. 3s and 3s, 2 rend, 2 damage. A number of attacks equal to the number of enemy models within 3 inches. And that's quite a lot. If you work out the averages on that, that works out to just below 1 rend 2 damage per model within 3 inches. So effectively against most units, if you fight against a unit of 20 guys and you get them all in your 3 inches, which isn't hard, it should wipe most units in one attack, or almost wipe most units in one attack. On the flip side, you play against giants, the attack basically does nothing. So, and that is where these get most of their damage from, that tail attack, really. So then there are other attacks on the profile. So this guy's got an Apex more, so it's 4 attacks, 3s and 1s. Still find it weird, that entire 1s thing. It just weirds me out a little bit why it exists. And only on the wound profiles of monsters on the top levels, random. 3s and 1s.
Well, we've actually mentioned the -1 to wound, though, at least. So
we have mentioned at least one -1 to wound in the game, yeah. So 3. I mean, I know what it does. It just weirds me out that it's just randomly there, just only ever in one type of profile with monsters. Like nothing else in the game does it. It's like, if that's a thing, you never see a hit roll that does that. Anyway, it is odd. 4 attacks, 3s and 1s, 2 rend, 3 damage. Decent profile. And 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 rend, 2 damage. So not amazing in melee, really, for a 600-point model. Unless he brings that tail online. But this guy's the caster, so he's got bonuses to cast. So he casts and unbinds 2, and he gets +3 to his cast rolls at the top level. It degrades a little bit. And then he's got a spell, which is a good spell, but it casts on a 9. It's like they give him +3 to cast, but then they've made this spell so hard to cast that it barely makes a difference. And over the course of the game, becomes hard to cast. Now, I think this is a little bit a bit much to make this good, but it has got good effects. Range 24, first and foremost, you don't see that a lot. And an AOS 3 is turn 1 a lot of the time, casting this spell. You can either give the enemy -1 to hit, -1 rend, -1 to saves, or -1 attack from missile weapons, which is a pretty good debuff. Not sure that I'm happy casting it on effectively a 6. That gets harder as the game goes on, though. Really.
Maybe I feel a little bit different about that. Like, yeah, I get it. It's nice if it's always happening, you're rolling a 4 and it happens or whatever. But I think the end number you roll a cast on, very important now against a lot of the armies out there, because there's so many bonuses to unbind. So I think you're throwing it out there on a 7, you might as well just maybe not be casting it in some circumstances. But if you can throw that big number out,
you're saying you'd rather have
13.
I know what you mean. You'd rather have cast on a 9 and a +3 than just cast on a 6, because it's then harder to unbind. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that with a lot of bonuses to cast in other armies when the spells do cast on easy numbers as well, because they're so important for actually getting the spell off. That's why I like the mount trait, which is -1 to unbinds as well, because most of the time that's almost as good as +1 to cast, and you don't get a lot of that. The Star Drake's got a bubble of +1 to cast as well, which it's always had. So you can get some of these numbers quite big. 600 points though for that model. No ward save.
Seems okay.
Seems okay. Yeah. It's not very focused, is it? It's like, it's got a good melee debuff, but it's not great in melee unless it's hitting a unit. It's got a decent spell, and it's obviously going to Mystic Shield or something, because you don't have a lot of casters in this army as its second one, which is good. But 600 points, though, with the level of protection it hasn't got. Giants will take that to bits with their end. Archeon is still going to take them to bits anyway, and you've got the threat of instant death. I'm not 100% sure I like this model. And,
the 3+ save stat is strong. Like,
yeah, the whole book's got that, though. So, I think in other armies, I think this might be good. I'm just not sure with the expensiveness of stuff in this book, you can afford 600 points for a unfocused model necessarily. I don't know. I'm not sold on him. I'm more sold on the next one.
I felt the same.
On the next guy. So the next guy is basically the same. Obviously, he hasn't got the spell stuff, but he's got 2 more attacks on the jaws. So 6 attacks, 3s and 1s, and it's Ren 3 damage. That's a real big attack. And his talons, which is the 3s and 3s, Ren 2 damage, has got 2 more attacks as well. He's still got the fire breathing. When he kills stuff, if it's a hero or a monster, which you are obviously going to kill with that profile and what you're going to go for, he gets +1 to all his attack characteristics till the end of the battle every time he does it as well. So there's a good chance at some point in the battle he's going to be on 7 attacks on that. And he doesn't really degrade badly either. His move does, but it doesn't degrade too fast. And his jaws go to a 2+, which is mostly the same as a 1+ if you're not being debuffed, all the way down to suffering 12 wounds. So I think he's ready, and he gets other buffs from killing other stuff. But he's better. He gets used from his
I liked him more as well.
Yeah.
The other guy didn't stand out as a wizard enough for me, you know.
Yes, exactly.
This was it.
Yeah. I think the other guy, if his spell cast on a lower number and he still had the bonus, so you knew it was going off all the time, because it is a good debuff and you were guaranteed to be getting the effect, I think I'd love him. But this guy is brilliant. And because he's a monster, you know, to get that hero monster +1 attack thing off, when you go in there, you can drop your +1 hit and wound, which drops all of his stuff to 2s and 2s. You know, +1 to hit works on him really well because all this stuff hits on 3s. And he obviously he's a hero as well, and he's got that 3+ save stat. I think he's a great monster killer in an army that doesn't have a lot of good damage output stuff.
And what does Thunderstrike do for him?
When they die, they roll 19 instead of 18 dice, looking for 6s.
Okay, cool.
Pretty irrelevant.
Just wanted to check.
But it's interesting that they are Thunderstrike models. I actually find it interesting that they've given them that. It's like everything new is Thunderstrike, regardless of whether it's actually got the armor on or not. Bit weird. But yeah, I like that. This guy's obviously very good. And the likelihood is in this army, you're going to be -1 to wound these because something's going to have the Master of the Celestial Menagerie trait in the army as well. So these are going to be like hard to kill. Like, I think hard enough anyway to kill. Good. Definitely be buying one of them. Assembling the second guy.
Yeah, I'm 100%. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah,
I might like to see like what combination of the 2 kits you can do to I don't know if I like the first nice smiley head better. I'm not sure. I'll have to have a look at the kits and see which way you can go. Can you not have the scar on them, you know? Like you can be painted as your own one.
Yeah.
Not sure how it
would
be.
For sure, yeah. A little kit bash. All right, then we've got Andraster, who is same as she was previously. 320 points. Very powerful ability that returns models to the battlefield in every unit within 12, including up to 3 wounds characteristics. So that's going to be Paladins with a 2-up save in this book.
Wild.
Also debuffs monsters. Also makes small immune to Battleshock, which unfortunately is a problem for Stormcast. She does loads, and she's got a 4-up ward, as we said before. Super tough to kill, great for healing, and she's got a good ranged attack, and she's good in melee. She just goes in. She's not an auto include, but she's not miles from it. I don't think. So she's awesome. Also, Bastion Carthalos is also very good. 300 points, same stats again. 8 wounds, 3-up save, 4-up ward. Very tough to kill for all the same reasons. Once a turn, your hero phase, you pick an enemy unit, your own number of dice, you use its wounds characteristic. Every 6 does a mortal. So giants, 6 mortals a turn on one of the giants. Lightning strikes, pew and down on these guys. Or small characters, 6 wound guys or whatever, over the course of a couple of turns. It could kill them in combination with some of the plink shooting the army's got. Could just do some damage to some small characters. Decent ability. He's got to be on the board for it, though. So if you're going to deep strike this guy because he only moves 6, you won't get that on turn 1. Castellan of Azir. Started the game, redeploy D3 units. Obviously, you can redeploy them into the sky if that's legal to do so. Move them around. Important thing with lots of things that are on foot, refusing a flank or whatever. Decent ability. Not amazing standalone, decent. My favorite ability that it's got Voice of Thunder, once a turn, both players' turns, issue a command anywhere on the battlefield without spending a command point, 2 free CP a turn. Only to Hammers of Sigmar units, though. So you got to be playing Hammers of Sigmar to use that. But I really like that ability. I think that's deceptively the best part of his War Scroll, personally.
Yeah, I agree. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking at the he's got some great stuff. Loving the Thunderborn
and then
as
Mantle
well.
of the First Storm. End of any phase, combat phase for him, because that's the only one he does damage in. If he kills any models, he heals all his wounds, which is kind of crazy. Because he's got 4 attacks, 3s and 2s, 2 Ren, 4 damage. So he's a grinder, isn't he? He's doing wounds to something every turn just for being there. He's healing himself as long as he kills something. He's tough to kill. He's got a 3-up on a 4-up ward. And he's given command points every turn, which contributes to the grind. And his attack profile is not the best in the damage output in the world for his 300 points. Easy to get hung up on a damage 4 stat, but very good. I think he's great, and the model's incredible as well.
Yeah, he's boss.
He's a G.
How many points did you say?
300. Which was my guess for him, actually, was he was going to be 300. And at 300 would be a bit difficult sometimes to want to fit him in lists. Like, there's a lot of lists you make and you're like, I need to take something out to make my army big enough. And it's like, he's great. He does loads of stuff. But again, he's an unfocused model. And a lot of the time, Andraster is your auto-include and she's competing directly with him for a slot. And he forces you into Hammers of Sigmar, which most of the time I think you don't want to be with a lot of builds either. Ideally, you don't want to be Hammers of Sigmar, so tough one. But I can't wait to use him because he does loads of different stuff. He's good. Vandus Hammerhand. So this is an old character, bit of a new lease of life on him. So he's got a Storm Blast, so 12-inch range. You roll a dice on a 4-up, it does D3 mortals. All the Dracots have got the same rule now for that. But he's got 3 attacks, 3s and 2s, Ren 1, 3 damage, which goes up to 5 if he charges. So that's 15 points of damage, only Ren 1. All your Hammers of Sigmar within 24 are immune to Battleshock, which is a good ability. And once a turn, start of the combat phase, you pick a friendly Hammers of Sigmar Redeemer unit to get +1 to their attacks characteristic, which isn't nothing. Now, this guy isn't particularly expensive. He's 215 points, I think. And now, obviously, he's decently hard to kill because he's got a 3-up save. Yeah, 215 points. I think he's a playable character. Like, I think I think a lot of these like guys with 8 wounds and a 3-up riding on a Dracoth, 9 wounds, on this guy and a 3-up are playable characters. The problem is where you're going to fit them in when you've got Andraster and Bastion, Carthalos, and all the other great characters that you're going to want to take. But he's good for his points value, like he really is, and he can ride along with your other Dracots and stuff, and supporting them in combat and stuff. But where'd you fit him?
He's okay.
Yeah.
How you
so
get
we've
him
got. Yeah, well, how you get him in is the thing. Aventus Firestrike next. I'm gonna kind of skip over. She's on a Taurolon. Everything on a Taurolon's just a bit too expensive. Main reason being they don't really do any damage in combat. Right? They're a monster. They fulfill that monster role, but she's over 300 points. She's just not good enough. She just doesn't do enough. She's a double caster.
Same on all these.
Her spell's not amazing. Yeah, it's a lot for most of these characters on Taurolons. I'm going to skip over now because they're generally just too expensive for what they do. Astrea Solbright is really good. She's on a Dracoline. So she's only got 14 points of melee damage, 3s and 3s round 1, which isn't brilliant. But she's got Cycle of the Storm, which I've always thought is a great ability. I like it even more now. Once a turn, when a friendly Stormcast model dies, it stays on 1 wound instead. The value of a wound in this army being particularly high because of the armor saves. She's also got, start of the combat phase, you pick a friendly Hammers of Sigmar Sacrosanct unit within 12. She's not always going to be taken, but if you do, they get +1 to save in melee, which is a big deal in this game right now.
Yeah.
And then she's got a decent spell if she's in melee, 6-inch range, -1 to hit bubble. So she's kind of okay. Again, She does some good stuff. If you like Sacrosanct, then you've got one of those old Sacrosanct army with the sequiturs in and stuff from when they were a thing. They are very playable in this book, and I think she's really good with them. If you're not running Sacrosanct and she not giving you a free +1 to save, not so much.
But yeah, you got to be Hammers of Sigmar as well,
and you've got to be Hammers of Sigmar as well. Yeah. So again, like I say, not quite there, but I talk about them two characters because we give, the designers, Games Workshop, a lot of stick for just making loads of useless units, and these are not useless. We won't play them because competitively, we wouldn't go down that line of building that army, but they are good. And if you've got them and you want to play them, you can, and they're good, which I really like that the effort's been put into them to make them good enough. Garda Steel Soul is definitely good enough. So this is one of the special characters. He's the Lord Celestant of the Hallowed Knights, who we were talking about before. So terrible allegiance ability. He gives friendly Hallowed Knights Holy Writ in 12 a 5-up ward, which is kind of a big deal. And he's only 160 points.
That is good.
Yeah. Now, he's got a couple of other abilities. He fights on a 2-up when he dies. So technically, he can fight twice when he dies with the allegiance ability as well, although his attacks profiles 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 2 damage, so pretty bland. Once a battle, start of the charge phase, you can declare a Saintly Assault, reroll all your charge rolls for Hallowed Knights, which again is not nothing in a world of redeploy and minuses to charges and stuff. And friendly Hallowed Knights heroes get +1 to all their attacks characteristics, which again, you can't abuse too much in this army, but if you do happen to be running a dragon next to him, so it gets a 5-up ward, it also gets +1 on all its attacks profiles as well. 160 points. He does a lot.
160.
Yeah, he's good. Important thing being, you've got Praetors in this army now, which came out in Dominion, which bodyguard anyone. So you can keep them alive if you want to. It turns them into a 325 point investment, but a 5-up ward bubbles in an army full of 3-up saves is pretty big game, I think.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't he? That is pretty good buff. Well, it's an amazing buff, right? But
yeah, but he's very shootable. You can also just drop him into an army and people are just forced to shoot him first, right? Like that's also a thing. And a lot of armies, a lot of the big shooting armies will have no problem doing that. But if they spend all their shooting on turn 1, killing a 160 point hero, sometimes that is enough. And against the armies that can't shoot them off the table, you've got a 5-up ward all game. Only a 12-inch bubble, not going to cover your whole army. But he is, I've ordered one. You definitely want to give this army a go and see what you can do with it, don't you? 2-up saves and 5-up wards all over the place is hard to not at least have a go of. And you can see this with an army from a Stormkeep, where you've just got loads of Vindicators or something that all count as 3 models, and your game is just going to be move my guys onto objectives and just stand there and don't die to anything, basically. Bring models back every turn with Andraster. He's given everything a 5-up ward. It could get out of control against a lot of armies. Oh, I get out of control quite slowly, but you will win because nothing dies. Cool model. Nice way to make a really good model with some history playable in a different way. The Star
Drake that is interesting. Definitely a model I would keep in mind when I was building lists, right? So
yeah, definitely, yeah. So the Star Drake's the next one. Quite a big change to this model. So it's now got a ranged attack, 30-inch range attack, 4 attacks, 3s and 2s, 3 rend, 2 damage. Still 500 points. He's gone up to 18 wounds as well.
This used to be some board-wide D3 mortals, though, right?
Yeah, it used to be an ability that you rolled for stuff, and it did some more, D6 units took some mortals, etc. And it was very unfocused and did mortals to a lot of stuff. Didn't do enough for 500 points. Whereas now you can shoot a character, or Rend 3, you can shoot anything. And at Rend 3, at the point of Rend 3, you're shooting at Archeon or something and taking real wounds off them. Unfortunately, it's only 8 total damage, but it's got Rend 3, which is quite a big deal. So it's decent from that point of view. 18 wounds and a 3-up save is tough.
Worse than Rain of Stars. It's worse than Rain of Stars. I remember that being pretty good.
See,
It's all Rain Stars.
The problem with unfocused stuff like that is for me is it can be good if there was armies you saw once upon a time where it was like, I'm going to take the Comet and a Star Drake and you just got to spam loads of mortals out everywhere. But they're not good enough generally, because unless you've got lots of area effect stuff, you end up doing a little bit of damage to lots of things and not actually taking anything off the board a lot of the time. And so
Yeah, I agree.
I think this is an improvement. You could certainly argue you like the old version better. I wouldn't begrudge anyone that, but I think Ren 3 high damage shooting now is, you can't mortal Archeon on a gash off the board, right? Because their save's too good. They got too many wounds. You can't attack them with lots of attacks. What you want is just high Ren stuff to kill them, and this has got it. And having access to it is really good, I think. It's a good ranged attack. It's on a 500-point model, so there's a lot to unpack in this model as to whether it's worth it, though. 18 wounds and a 3-up is tough, right? Like, for a 500-point model, maybe not that tough, but you can put an Amulet of Destiny on this, unlike the big dragons, which makes it hard to kill, because it's, right, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's also got +1 to casting rolls for friendly wizards with an 18, -1 for enemy wizards with an 18. It's a great buff. Hard to use in Stormcast because the wizards aren't really the best and they don't have the best spells and stuff, but decent. A lot of the armies you put together have no way to use this, unfortunately, sometimes. But I have built a few armies that were like him and the 600-point dragon. Really, you want the melee dragon, though, not the one that casts spells. Cavernous Jaws, I think, is good. You pick 3 models, and you do pick the models individually as well. And if you roll over the wounds, they die. Now, if you're fighting something that's got 2 wounds per model, there's a good chance that's like doing 6 mortals. When you add it up like that, it's quite a good attack. Bypass is disgustingly resilient.
It's a coherency breaker. It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's a champion taker. It's a banner taker. Does all sorts of stuff.
Really, really good.
Really good. Again, unfortunately, you play against giants or Archeon on a gash or something, it does nothing. Right, is the problem with it, much like the tail on the other dragons. He's still got the shield where when you roll a 6 to save, you do a mortal back to the enemy, sure. And once a battle, it can issue a command for free within 12 inches. Its attack profile, you basically are always going to choose the Celestine Hammer. So it's 3 attacks, 3s and 2s, 2 Ren 2 damage. Then it's got D6 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 Ren 2 damage, and then 4 3s and 3s, 2 Ren 2 damage from the Drake as well. So pretty weak attack profile for a 500-point model. So it's a weird one to evaluate this. It's got a pretty weak attack profile, but it's got a good ranged attack, which brings its damage obviously up. And it's got the Jaws, which is good. And then it's a big tanky thing with 18 wounds, a 3-up. You're probably going to be -1 to wound it. It's probably going to have an Amulet of Destiny. I think this is more playable in that config than it's ever been before. I've wrote quite a few lists that's got one in.
It's always so tough, and now it's not as tough because it used to re-roll and all that nonsense, didn't it?
With buffs from the rest of the army and stuff, yeah.
We're not seeing that anymore. We're just down to normal save stacking.
You've got the armor that lets you re-roll all saves of damage against damage 2 or more. Or you've got the Amulet of Destiny as well. Or you've got the Mirror Shield just to get it in combat against shooting units, although you're probably not gonna pick that option. You've got the army-wide -1 to wound, and it can also take the mount trait, which is the monstrous rampage for -1 to hit as well. I think it's got lots of survivability. I'm just not sure a 500-point model that counts as 5 models from objective being mega survivable is quite good enough for its points, because it doesn't kill that much.
It makes the new Dragons battle line as well as that character, doesn't it?
Yeah, the other guy that makes them battle line is better, though. Yeah, so it's an interesting proposition, this. I definitely want to put one on a table and see how it works out. I think if you're going to do like a shooting army, having something like this that's just going to clog up the middle of the battlefield and contribute to your shooting at the same time might be a good thing. Big base blocker, very hard to remove from an objective. enemy comes into it, you make it 1-up save, it's a monster, so it's got all them benefits as well. I do think it's playable. There's definitely a list for this, and I don't think, realistically, if people are honest, I don't think there's ever been a time when Star Drakes were good, or should have ever been in a competitive army for me. And I think now they're better than they've ever been, more dangerous than ever, as Warhammer community would say. What do you reckon?
Fair enough. Fair.
Yeah.
When they were near unkillable, I think they were good, but
yeah, but the army wasn't good enough, was it? With them in, they were good, but they weren't winning tournaments. It was a good trick, but it wasn't a great army. I don't think, it was just a trick. Skim over a few units now. Gavriel Shawheart's lost his +3 to charge. Now he just gives Hands of Sigmar rerolls, so we're not going to see him anymore. Skip over a few more War Scrolls, and we are going to stop at the Lord Arcanamon Griff Charger. This is my sleeper amazing unit in the book. So all of the Griff Charger...
This is the other one that keeps models alive, isn't it?
Yeah, he's got Cycle of the Storm as well. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
So Griff Chargers used to have this ability where instead of moving, they could move 46 inches in any direction. Now it's just a teleport anywhere on the battlefield, including if they're in melee. More than one from terrain, more than one from terrain on objectives, more than 9 from enemy units. Teleport. Great ability. All the Vanguard style knights have got that now. He's also got 11 points of damage, some of which has got Ren 2. So it's not like he can't kill anything in combat. So, that's a thing he can do. And he's a caster as well. And his spell is a 5+ cast heal, D3 wounds if you roll an 8 or more, D6 wounds. So he's 195 points, this guy as well, and he's 8 wounds with a 3-up save. So you look what he brings to the army. He brings a heal. Well, he brings a caster for an unbind. He can cast your heal or your Mystic Shield. He can use Cycle of the Storm once a turn. And he can also teleport around the battlefield and do naughty things when your opponent's not expecting it. It's quite a lot for 195 points, and he's 8 wounds and a 3-up save.
Seems okay.
I really like this.
Yeah, well, look, Cycle of the Storm, if you're going to do that stuff, is quite important. And if you're going to keep things alive and protect them, and it's a decent body to have it on. I agree. And a heal works well in obviously in the same sort of combinations. We've already talked about healing a Celestin Prime or what have you. So nice. It's got an okay range. It's fast anyway. You can get about. Obviously, the ride there wins etheric change for the army wide that we're highlighting for the first time here is really good.
It's really big, yeah. Just talk about the spells briefly while we're on the caster as well. So, as usual, Stormcast have not done very well out of the spells because it's just a bunch of various ways of doing lightning bolts, which isn't great. I'll pick some of the standout ones though. So they've got the same one they've always had: Lightning Blast, D3 mortal wounds, infinite range to the closest unit, which I always like the concept of, but you're probably never going to use it. Azerite Halo. So this is where all the spells have got an 18-inch range, right? Like every spell in the game, basically. But if they're on a knight instead of a lord, they go down to 12-inch range, which is not the right use of that mechanic, I don't think. For me, it's like all these knights that you pay a lot of points for get all their spells reduced to a really small range, which just seems a little bit like meh to me. Like I see what they were going for, but it's a negative rather than a positive. So they got Azerite Halo.
Yeah.
Reflect mortal wounds on a 6 when they save. Not a great spell. Celestial Blades give +1 to wound in melee to a unit, which can be okay, but there's so many that wound on a 2, which are the ones that you actually want to buff with this, like the dragons. And then we've got Thundershock, which is this one's all right now. So you pick a point on the board. You roll a dice for every enemy. So you don't pick a point on the board. You roll a dice for every enemy within range on a 3-up to get -1 to wound for all attacks, not just melee. So if this is on like a dragon or something, big pulse. Yeah. And that is an 18-inch range on a Lord or a Draconith. But my favorite one, Starfall. Pick a point on the battlefield within 12 or 18 if it's a Lord or a Draconith. Roll a dice for every enemy unit within 3. On a 3-up, they can't pile and move until the end of the turn, which is good.
Yeah, that is good.
It's really good, isn't it? When I'm making armies, I'm basically putting that spell on every wizard in the army to make sure I've always got one. Because there's other stuff for them to cast
somewhere.
Not that there's many wizards in the army most of the time, but that's what's going on. That's really good spell. That, you know, we talk a lot about why piling stuff is good, and that's good. Like, really good. Unfortunately, it is a spell, which means if you're doing it on Archaon, he's got a chance to ignore it. If you're doing it on the Gash, he's probably going to unbind it. So it's not as good at dealing with the big heroes and stuff as some other things, and you can't rely on it because it's on a 3-up after having to cast it as well. But it is a good spell. It's the best one in the lore, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree. Mystic Shield's really good for this army as well, which is nice. So
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, most of the time, I haven't written an army with more than 2 wizards in it. One of them's always casting Mystic Shield, so you only really need one lore spell to be falling back on, pretty much, and it's going to be that one. And if you got a Griff Charge, you got the option on your heal as well. If you
honestly, it's good to not have to rely. It's good not to have to rely on wizards. Let's be honest. So why do you want it? Randomly get your stuff off. So.
Oh yeah. I don't like. I mean, a lot of my armies just don't have wizards in because they're all really expensive in this army as well. You know, the points costs are. This army's not costed aggressively like a lot of new armies when they come out, like Lumineth or the Cruel Boys, for example, tend to come out with a lot of aggressively costed units. The units in this army are costed like fine. If they were costed better, it would be a really great army. I'm also just going to mention the Lord Aqualore as well, who's the melee version of the guy on a Griff Charger.
Yeah.
He's got 13 points of damage on him. Some of it's Ren 2. He's got a pistol as well, takes him up to 17 points of damage. He can teleport round the battlefield and melee stuff and steal objectives or whatever, potentially. He's only like 205 points. Again, this teleporting thing's just really powerful, I think. I definitely think, I don't think I've ever seen that model on the table anywhere, and I think you certainly could put him on the table now in an army that's doing some tricksy stuff. Lord Imperatant is the guy from Dominion who lets you deep strike within 7 instead of 9 once a turn and gives you a free command point once a turn, but he's got to be the one issuing it. It was quite good, but he's gone up to 175 points.
Wow.
Like, just a massive nerf from Dominion, and he's never seen the table, and he's just not worth it. Like, he's... I mean,
if you need a unit to be able to get into combat, there's quite a few other options now, isn't there? You know, with the auto charge or the Celestin Prime, reroll.
It's a good ability.
One of the charge dice.
It's a good ability, but he's not a 175 point model. It just come out of nowhere, that, and it's really hard to build. I love the model as well. It's really hard to build armies with him though, because the armies just get out of control too quickly, and you got no models, which is a bit of a shame.
If you want to auto charge something, there's just plenty more options. Like,
and it's not even an auto charge; it's still a 7. It's not even that easy.
Oh yeah, really.
Better. yeah. So we've got next. We got the Lord Relicta, old reliable Lord Relicta, been around forever. He's a priest. Importantly, he's a priest with +1 to his chanting rolls now, which is kind of good because the Stormcast have still got the translocation prayer, which lets you teleport stuff. Now it's this is a 12-inch range because he's a lord, and it's answered on a 3+. So for him, it's a 2-up. Teleport any unit on a 2-up every turn. Super great. Lord Teleporter. He's only like 125 points as well, I think, which is just like a lot of the characters have gone up, and just some of them have just stayed cheap, and he's cheap as well. He's a great model.
That's cool. He's a totem as well, so big.
He's
command,
a totem as well.
Ability
Almost
ranges.
everything's elite in this army. That has like there's no use for the totem in this army, I don't think, really. But yeah, he's a totem. There's also blessed weapons as well, which is kind of good. You pick a Stormcast Eternals unit, and if they every 6 they rolls a hit counts as 2 hits, but it works on shooting as well. So that's going to go off on a 2-up for him if you want to give him blessed weapons as well. So potentially this army doesn't put big units together and buff them to shoot, in my opinion. So I don't think this is as good as it could be. But it's nice. It's always nice when you can buff shooting. right? In a shooting army, there's not many ways to do it. So double hits on a 6. He's also got a heal on his war scroll as well, which is another option. So he gives you quite a lot. What do you think of that guy?
Yeah, that's good. It highlighted some good points about him. That's class.
Yeah.
Like 2+ teleport, brilliant.
Yeah.
More reasons. Like I highlighted earlier, why you might be able to go into the 3 models rather than having to deep strike stuff.
The storm keeps. So. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it was
really
always good anyway. You get your army down, and then they get stuck on their own somewhere. It was always good to be able to move these slow units back around the board if you needed to. It probably lets you keep deep striking those Annihilator fellas as well, right? If you wanted to do that thing.
It only works when you set up with the Signs of the Storm, the thing, unfortunately.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, it's only the first time. Actually, so not Signs of the... It's only the first time they're set up, either way. All right, so that guy, incidentally, if you're after one and you can't find one, he's in the Thunderstrike Brotherhood Start Collecting box set is where you get him now. The only other place he's ever been, unless he was in a magazine, is the original the original starter set for Age of Sigmar. This guy is really hard to find, so you need to buy a starter for this guy. Luckily, that Start Collecting box has got loads of stuff in it you want to play now, so buy one of those from justplaygames.uk. The Lord Castellan, right, next guy. This guy's always been good for his land, save buffs, etc. He's gone up to 155 points, but he's 8 wounds now. I think that's because he's got a Griff Charger with him, factoring all into one model. 3-up save. In your hero phase, pick a friendly Stormcast unit within 18 inches, and they get +1 to save until your next hero phase. Bang a mirror shield on this guy so he can't be shot. And you've got +1 to save on a stick for 155 points, which is great. You can also do D3 mortals to people as well, but you're never going to do that.
He's got 8 wounds now?
Yeah, it's the Griff Chargers being factored into the model, I think, rather than counting as a separate Griff Charger. The Griff Hound.
So there's no doing the Griff Hound, the Griff Charger abilities from the Griff Chargers anymore now?
Yeah, no, some of them, Griff Hounds, not Griff Chargers, sorry, but some of them do still get the individual Griff Hounds, but this guy and also the Lord Imperitant's gone up to 7 wounds as well. They've got them factored into the model stats, I think. So this guy's gone to 8 wounds, so it's not a separate model anymore.
So no stand and fire against deep strike?
No stand and fire, no. There's another guy that lets you do that, though, so it's all good. But I like this. I mean, 8 wounds, 155 points. You paid off for this guy. Make sure he stays alive. Keep that 1 save buff around. Mirror shield, if you've got it. And he's got 12.
There's a heal now, much harder to spike down.
Yeah, I like him. He's really good, obviously. My Poor Lord Exorcist, of which I own 3, because they were 90 points, has now gone up to some crazy number of points. Awesome model as well. He's still a caster. Really unique ability. Slain models cannot be returned to enemy units within 9 inches of this model. Right? You're never going to put that on the board, but that's really good as an ability.
He's 170 points, right? Like,
it's
that is an amazing ability. Now, haven't I seen this on some sort of fighting unit in this book?
Yeah, the Sequitors get it as well. So these used to be anti-Nighthaunt abilities. Now they're just, you can't bring models back from the dead, which thematically makes a lot of sense. They're all about banishing ghosts and stuff. So
it's a good ability, right? But 170, for something that doesn't work against everything, no go, right? That's what
he should just be a 120 point
caster. He was like you said, he was.
Yeah, he was 90. He should just be a 120 point caster that you buy, and sometimes his ability does something, and otherwise he's just your caster. Because then you'd probably pay for him. 170 is crazy. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. All right, and then we get on to most of the other stuff. Everything else is still pretty much the same as it, similar to what it ever did. Lord Ordinator, +1 to hit with siege engines is still there. Lord Arcanum on foot. Cycle of the Storm, 155 points. I think you would just pay 40 extra points for the Griff Charger version for that guy now, like the mobility, the healing spell, all that extra stuff you get. But he's still good if you want to do Cycle of the Storm based stuff. He's actually only available in the Aventus Firestrike kit, which is a 70 quid kit, and you get this guy in it as well. So he's getting converted if you ever decide to use one of them. It's weird figuring out where Stormcast models come from because loads of them are really in obscure places. So we got the Drake Swan Templar, which is similar to the Star Drake, obviously 440 points, which initially I was like, oh, cool, we can get all the same stuff for cheaper. You get mostly the same rules. You get a melee weapon that's got some special rules instead of what the Lord Celestant on the normal Star Drake does. But then you got a 4-up save for some reason, right? Because you're not carrying a shield, and this giant armored monster, because the guy on the back hasn't got a shield with him, loses an entire point of save, which just makes this unplayable, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Big, 60 points for +1 to
big
save.
Drop off.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
Real kind of pointless war scroll there, my opinion. Bit of a shame. All right.
Maybe, maybe there's a point situation when you build a list, right? But otherwise, that's...
You'd find 60 points for +1 save, though, wouldn't you? If it's going to be a model, that's a quarter of your army. It's hard work. Weird, that one for me. It's like sticking too rigidly to that. If it hasn't got a shield, it loses a save. Principle seems a bit unnecessary, but it's fine. You just buy Star Drake instead. New guy, Knight Draconis. So this is the guy riding the Draconith. We're going to see this guy a lot. I believe 255 points, 11 wounds, and a 3-up save. Draconic Flame Stream. So all the Draconiths have got this attack. 12-inch range, 1 or 2 nothing, 3 or 4 D3 mortals, 5 or 6 D6 mortals. Really good. Melee weapons, Aeon Fireblade, 5 attacks, 3s and 2s, 3 Ren 2 damage. Sure. Yeah, take that profile. And then the dragon itself, 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 Ren 2 damage. So, 18 points of very reliable 18 Ren 2 or 3 damage on that guy. 4 up to ignore spells and endless spells, which is nice. Once a battle, you pick a friendly Storm Drake Guard unit, which are the normal version of these. In your hero phase, gets to make a shooting attack. So that's normally going to be like 4 mortal wounds or something once a battle for free. And at the end of the combat phase, all the Draconiths have got this ability as well. Pick an enemy model, an enemy unit, roll a dice. If it's greater than the wounds characteristic, you can pick a model and it dies. Pretty great. And it's a monster, this as well. 12-inch move. Pretty great, really, that, isn't it?
No, it's an absolute beast, isn't he?
Beast of Rend, ranged attack, buffs. He gets to carry all your monsters in the army get -1 to be wounded command trait. Yeah, it's really good. And he's, got spell resistance. Yeah, love these. Definitely. What I really like about these is they obviously come in the same kit as the normal ones. There's an option in the points for every one of these you can take a Storm Drake Guard unit of 1 instead of 2, which means you can actually still run that spare guy in your army. Which is like super, super cool and something I've never seen Games Workshop do before, is be like, here's a way to use the
I never realised that.
Yeah. So
clock that. Yeah, you could be right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about it a bit more when we get to the unit, but that's pretty awesome. And then the Knight Relicta, right? He's a priest, which is fine. But he's like 140 points, so he's more expensive. No, sorry, the Lord Relicta's like 145. This guy's 5 points cheaper. Doesn't get the +1 to cast, so automatically worse by a long way. Anytime a friendly Stormcast Eternals unit within 12 is affected by an invocation or a prayer on a 4+, they can ignore it. I mean, as niche abilities go, it's pretty niche, that, isn't it?
Oh, you're skipping War Scrolls, Ian.
Yeah, I just had to mention that one because it was so niche. This model's amazing. It's like chaplains in 40k. Every single one of them is amazing. I think you should use this model as your Lord Relicta, personally, I reckon, because he's just incredible. Little bit of conversion to make it legal. Then we got the Knight Judicator. So this is the other new guy with the bow. Living artillery piece. He certainly is. 30-inch range, 2 attacks, 3s and 2s, 3 Ren, 3 damage. And when you set him up, you get to summon a unit of 2 Gryph-hounds, which are a unit that gives you the early warning system. And importantly, he's only 205 points. So if you consider them Gryph-hounds worth 30 points, 35 points or something, you've got a unit that gives you anti-deep strike that can go and grab an objective in the same way Ether Wings used to do, because they move 9, they're still fast, and you get that guy for what's effectively 160, 170 points. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's super good, isn't he?
His absolute damage output isn't the best, but Ren 3, right? And that's really good. And he brings models with him to capture objectives while he's sitting at the back of the board shooting things. He's got another ability as well. Once a battle, you can pick, instead of shooting, you can pick a point on the battlefield within 30, roll a dice. Every unit within 6 on a 4-up takes D3 mortals, which is really good as well for breaking castles or KO boats or whatever. I've ordered 4 of these because I reckon there's an army where you put a lot of these on the board.
You ordered 4 Opals, did you?
I did, yeah. That's where they all went. So if you put 4 of these, didn't you see that order? So if you put 4 of these on the board, you've got a lot of very high Ren shooting. You're 24 points of Ren 3 shooting, which is going to hurt, going to demolish anything that they decide to shoot at. And you get 4 units of Griffhounds. So anyone deep strikes near your castle, they're all going to get to shoot potentially 4 times at the thing that's deep striking if they come close enough, because all those abilities trigger. And that's a side benefit. But you've also got 4 units of Griffhounds that can just go and take stuff. And that's only 820 points. You can still buy the rest of your army. So I think these are super good. You can also put them in a Cities of Sigmar Tempest Eye list where you can get them all the buffs and the rerolls as well, which is good. This is a great unit, I think. Everyone should be quite excited.
Yeah, I'm internally just laughing about your this book hasn't got cheap units. Like
it's got a few.
It's got a thing again.
It's not that cheap because
like every new model, right? Like I know how much the other dragons cost as well. So
yeah, they're not that cheap. The other dragons, I don't think. They are good. They are very good, though.
Yes. What?
Yeah. So, all right. So this guy's quite good. He does only do 6 damage for 205 points, though. So you have got to be careful of armies like Giants, where if you haven't got enough raw damage output, you just lose the game. And I think these are bad in that situation. But
yeah, I'm not sure where forward go into my plans ever. But
no,
I like that it's it's this whole like accurate. I should be able to get some damage here where I need it. That's why I was like the Rain of Stars and the other guys. Anywhere on the board, do some mortal wounds. Particularly again when you're playing a shooting arm and you're trying to put together your shooting and you're allocating either units and what you're going to target and not overkilling and what have you. And when you can switch out to a unit like this to go, okay, please now kill that last guy for me, and he can do it, or okay, can I maybe finish that character off now before I start shooting, things like that. So I think he's good.
Yeah, I really like them. I really like as well taking multiples. You can, if someone does castle, which is a very common deployment type now, is to have lots of stuff close together. If you got multiple of them, that massive mortal wound bomb turn 1, 4 dice, everything within 6 inches, D3 mortals is good. And even if you're not, you've got lots. These also make Vigilors, which we'll talk about in a minute. Battle line if they're the general, which is quite cool. There's lots of armies where I've just put one of these in as well. Obviously, you've got a guy who can, much like the Rain of Stars on the Star Drake, very reliable damage that's gonna kill the thing it hits. Kill the character, do the wounds where you need the wounds if you just need to finish something off or whatever. So yeah, I like them, and you should definitely buy some. And then we've got some classics. We've got the Knight Vexillor with the classic teleport. I don't think he's really worth it anymore because you've got a 2-up repeatable teleport now. So I don't think you're going to take the banner version of that anymore. And then we've got the new Knight Vexillor that came in Dominion, which I also don't think he rolls 3d3 worth of heals that can bring models back as well. But number 1, sometimes that doesn't bring any models back, depending on how you allocate it, because everything's got multiple wounds. And he's just more points than just buying more models in your army. So, shame, because he's a very cool-looking standard bearer. The Knight Azeros, who used to give +1 to hit, fly around the border as lantern, give field +1 to hit, now does it at the end of the charge phase. and only affects melee, so you can't use them with shooting anymore, which is a bit of a blow. Bit of a shame that you can't help your shooting units with that guy, so he's not seeing the table anymore.
He's an ally issue though, so
what's that?
It was an ally issue massively, so I think it's maybe fair, but
yeah, fair. You just put a rule on him that says can't be allied, don't you? If that's your problem or whatever. But anyway, it's a bit of a shame. Blow to the shooting armies. Knight Arcanum, who's in Dominion. Predatory endless spells can't come within 3 inches of you, which is a weird, interesting rule. Probably never going to make the unit see any play, but worth mentioning. Knight Incanter now is your default wizard in this army. He's 125 points, 5 wounds and a 3-up save, which is great. Once a battle, he auto dispels something, which is like game changing, potentially, particularly now. You want to unbind Protection of Techless, which suddenly makes the army really squishy, and they've spent 700 points on a model that can't protect them. Is a big deal. And lots of other spells as well. You know, Mystic Shield even is just massive now. And his debuff's good as well.
Auto unbinders. Absolutely amazing. So
yeah, so good. His spell's decent as well. Casting value of 7, 18-inch range, -1 run and charge for enemy units within range is like one of them weird clutchy things you might occasionally cast when you know something's going to redeploy and you just need it not to get charged to win the game or whatever. Obviously, he's going to be casting Starfall most of the time or Mystic Shield. But yeah, he's good. He's in a lot of armies now as the solo wizard for 125 points. Knight Heraldor lost his run and charge or retreating charge that he had, so now he just does his 2 mortals, which is kind of pointless. And that's the end of the heroes. So that's everything. So plenty of playable units in there, and quite a few that we won't see competitively, but are also good, I think.
Yeah.
Good book so far.
Yeah, that's just, we've only done heroes.
Yeah, there's loads and loads of options. I think there's more options in the heroes than there are in the rest of the book, though. Like the rest of the book is where things get a little bit more, the choices become a bit more obvious. So Vindicators, War Scroll hasn't changed, but they've gone down to 130 points. Bravery 7, they come with a banner for 8. If you take them in a storm, keep the 9. So they are immune to Battleshock up to losing 4 models, basically. So almost immune to Battleshock without debuffs, which is good. These are your default choice for battle line, 130 points, just good. Decent attack. They do some mortals in combat. And, you know, they got a 3-up base save on a 130-point unit, which is great. Is
that the cheapest battle line?
Yeah, Liberators are cheaper and also very good. We've also got Vanquishers, who are the new guys that aren't out yet with 2-handed swords. Now, these are a bit interesting. So they've got the same profile without the mortals, 2 attacks, 3s and 3s for 1/1 damage, but they get an extra attack if there's 5 or more models in the target unit, an extra 2 attacks if there's 10 or more models. But they've only got a 1-inch range, so you can't really take them in more than 5s.
They've got a 4-up save as well.
And they've only got a 4-up save. The Musician's very interesting. When you rally them with the command ability, you get models back on a 5, which is kind of cool. The problem is that attack profile means you don't want to take them in big units. And what you really want to make, a unit of 20 of them, like with that rally ability, could be really cool. But they've lost a point to save, and their attacks are crap. And they're only 5 points cheaper than Vindictors. So I'm not really sure that you're really going to want to take them over Vindictors. They don't do enough to hordes. They haven't got one of them cool loads of attacks versus horde abilities. They're just a bit tame for me, them. And I don't think that
the combat unit as well.
Them.
So
what's that?
Can't rally in combat. Like, it just ends up ends up a bit weird, doesn't it? All that.
Yeah. Liberators are good. So Liberators are pretty much the same as they've always been stats wise. The Prime can take the Grand Weapon. It confirms that on all these War Scrolls now, so there's no ambiguity. So he's got 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 2 damage. The unit rules for saves now. You get +1 to save if at least half the models have got shields. So you can give one guy double hammers. You have the Prime with a big hammer and then 3 guys with shields. And it gives them +1 to save, which makes them a 3-up. Effectively the same as Liberators, as long as you're not trying to buff them too much beyond that. Same as Vindictors, sorry. At the end of the combat phase, you pick an enemy unit within 1 of this, and that is also within 6 of an objective. On a 4-up, it takes D3 mortals. A little bit niche. Main thing about these is you get 10 wounds on a 3-up save, effectively the same as Vindicators, but for 115 points, which is pretty good. I think there's 2 ways of using these. Either just to make your army fit, you turn a unit of Vindicators into a 5 of these, because Vindicators are still better for the points. Switch a unit of Vindicators into 5 of these. Or if you were going to spam lots of battle line onto the board and try and go for some kind of hold every objective on the table with all my guys counting as 3, you get quite a lot more for your buck if you're spamming a lot of these. So Liberator's still great, in my opinion. Like, still really good.
Yeah.
Viable alternative.
I can see why the Vindicators are so much more popular, like, though, still. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's lots of armies where I've been 2K on the nose, and I've turned a unit of Vindicators into these for a Triumph bid as well.
Yeah,
like, so Sequitors. So these are the ones that were all the rage when Soul Wars came out. So these get 2 models with the Great Mace. So 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 2 damage. Start of the combat phase, you can either make them double hit on a 6 or get a 5-up ward, which is quite good. And you can't return slain models to enemy units within 3 of the Sequitur Prime. Basically zombies and, Nighthorns pretty much anyway. These have only got a 4+ save though, and they're at 145 points. So I don't think these are really in contention anymore for the unit that you should be playing. Hard to want them over Vindictors. Those abilities.
Yeah, agree.
I think. Yeah.
Great.
All right, so let's go on to the next good unit, Judicators. Right, so these are 200 points now with bows.
Maybe the meta pushes that redemption and cash at some point, but you could have one unit of them, couldn't you?
Yeah. And the 5-up ward in melee is pretty. If there wasn't so much shooting, the 5-up ward in melee, if you were fighting against loads of melee mortals, would be good as well. 145 is quite a big step up from the other ones, though. And to lose a point to save as well. It's like, Judicators, 200 points for 5 of them. 2 attacks each, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 1 damage, 6s to hit, do a mortal. They're not very good for their points. Interestingly, they do have in melee now 1 attack, 3s and 4s, 1 rend each, which is like quite good for a shooting unit. Occasionally might be a thing you'd rather not pay points for it. The shock bolt bow, which you always used to put on the prime, is no longer a good option anymore because only the skybolt bow, the default weapon, does the mortal on a 6. So my advice to you, this is just maths, is if you're going to build some of these, don't put the shock bolt bow on anything. You want the skybolt bow now for the mortals. If you're going up to units of more than 5, you can put the shock bolt bow on one of the non-prime models, which does give you a slight damage increase. But in your basic 5 models, you basically don't want the what's the name anymore. You don't want the skybolt bow in your prime. You want them to do mortals, whereas +1 attack. Small thing. But the real standout here is Judicators with Boltstorm crossbows. I've only seen these on the table once, which was when I was being taught to play Age of Sigmar like 5 years ago. They've been bad forever, basically. Now what they've got is the Thunderbolt crossbow, which is a special one, which you can put on the prime, is 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, rend 2 damage, 3 attacks on the prime. And the normal crossbows are 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, no rend, but hit counters 2. So this unit sprays out loads of no rend damage and 3 attacks, 2 damage, rend 2 as well. They're only 190 points for 5 of them as well. So they're a bit cheaper than the other option. Now, only 18-inch range. So you're only really playing them if you're going to deep strike them, because otherwise they're probably not good enough, really. And you ideally want them in MSUs to get those crossbows on the primes to maximize your attacks with that big weapon. But these do more damage than Lumineth Archers, like by a fair old chunk. And that's assuming the Lumineth Archers cast their spell on themselves. It's forgetting Lambent Light, right? Which is a thing. It's not using Lambent Light, but just the units themselves, these do more damage than Lumineth Archers, which is not a fair comparison because Lumineth Archers, have a million range, ignore line of sight, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying they're a better unit, but if you've been shocked by Lumineth Sentinels and you think, wow, they do a lot of damage and these do more, the comparison I'm making is that these hit really hard. And I think deep striking these to shoot targets using their shorter range is a very viable and potentially quite powerful army for me.
How about someone having a save and throw?
So I'm talking about including save and throws to do more damage. Yeah. So the numbers are the rounded.
Surely don't against the 2+ save.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get against those saves, yeah, but that's not the kind of stuff you're going to be shooting a lot, right?
And a 3+.
Yeah, again, a 3+, they're the same because it's because of the numbers that these put out, just the sheer number of hits. Like volume of hits can compensate for saves quite a lot. So numbers wise, these do it's quite decimal these because this is damage per point, right? Like factor in the fact that these are more expensive, but against a 4+ save, these do 0.0308 damage per point, and Venari Sentinels do 0.025. So these do 20% more damage than Venari Sentinels against Saber 4-up. Against a Saber 3-up, these do 0.022 and Sentinels do 0.024. So Sentinels are less than 10% better against a 3-up save per point. So these are good. They do a lot of damage. Once you get into 2-ups, yeah, obviously the mortals are the best, like undoubtedly. But these do a lot of damage for their points, effectively. Or if you consider Lumineth Sentinels to be good at damage output for their points, then these are too, pretty much. And they're better at things with worse saves, obviously. So when it comes to shooting giants, which is a very relevant thing, these are better than Lumineth Sentinels at killing giants. They're better at killing things like Cruel Boys, which is going to be a relevant thing soon, etc. It's not the only thing you should have in your army. You're obviously going to put these also with the Knight Judicator, whereas 3 rend, and they're going to shoot at the higher end things, and maybe these are just going to clean other stuff off the board. But, you know, one of the problems the Sentinels have is getting rid of things with lots of wounds.
It's a pointless comparison, Ian, right? Like, can't you just...
It's not a pointless comparison, no, far from it.
You're selling your unit you're selling the unit comparing it to, like, the best shoot game without counting for everything.
But what? Yeah, but it's only a damage. You've got to take the comparison in the way it's meant.
Like,
yeah, you've got to take the comparison in the way it's meant, though, right? It's if you consider Sentinels to do a lot of damage, that's the yardstick for most people right now is how much damage Sentinels do. Like Sentinels take my stuff off the board. If you consider them to do a lot of damage, these do a lot of damage as well, is the point. And, you know, yeah, the Sentinels have got the range, but Sentinels don't deep strike. So, you know, there's other balancing factors. You can't account for Lambent Light. It makes them incredibly good that these don't get. But then again, you've got to cast your Lambent Light. The Sentinels have got to cast a spell to get the numbers I've just compared. These don't have to cast a spell. So if the spell fails or gets unbound, which is a thing that happens a lot, these are a lot better than Sentinels at damage output. So, you know, the point's not that these are a better unit because, you know, like I said, they're not. Sentinels are a better unit. They've just got too many other things going for them, and their army is better as well. But if you're looking for damage output per point, nothing else in the book comes close to Sentinels. Sentinels' damage output per point is nuts. But that's the point, is that if theirs is better than Sentinels, you've got to consider them a good unit. And I think that's relevant because at first glance, I don't think their stat line makes you think that. Because you look at them and you go, oh, no, Ren, they can't be good. When in actual fact, by volume of shots, they are actually good. Even against 3-up saves.
Until you want to kill some massive monsters running around the board that can go save, right, which is the whole game right now.
I don't know that 2+ saves are the whole game right now, right? Like Gargants are like almost the most played army that's in top 8s, and they don't have a 2+ save. They got a 3+ save at best. They're 3+ at best. You shoot one unit, he goes to a 3+, you stick everything into the other unit. You know, it's now at a 4+ or whatever. So I don't think everything being at a 2+ all the time is the default state of the game necessarily. Certainly won't be if lots of people are playing Cruel Boys. The default save is going to be a 5+, at which point these are going to be absolute murderers if they're shooting those. They do a lot more damage than Sentinels will. And they can start off the table, which
they're definitely good against. They're definitely good against any low save stuff around. I am
sure.
Yeah. They're okay.
Also, high save stuff. That's the numbers. They're better against things with a 4-up. They're slightly worse when things get to a 3-up, but not so much worse that you would not consider them to be a good unit anymore. They still got really good damage output. And don't forget, 3 of the shots are Rend 2 as well. If you're just looking at the Rend, it's a good number of Rend that you don't get on shooting attacks.
The little shots in there is good as well.
You can split as well.
Doesn't get bonus, doesn't get extra hits on that one, right? It's just the one.
No, that one doesn't get the extra hits. You can split as well. You can put the Thunderbolt crossbow into whatever's got the big save and put the rest into the thing you need to clear off the board to, reduce their board presence as well. There's all sorts of stuff you can do to make that better. So I think they're really good. I think they are one of the things that enables probably one of the best type of builds in the book is just using their output. Whether that's enough to make the army great is a different thing, but they are, by the numbers, a good unit. Castigators as well as the next one. So the little units of 3 shooty guys, sacrosanct guys that came out. They're also pretty good by the numbers. So they get D3 shots, 3s and 3s, 1 Rend, 1 damage, which you can make 2 Rend, or you can give them +1 to hit. So basically, against anything with a 4-up, you make them 2 Rend. Anything with a 5-up or worse, you make them +1 to hit. It's 6 damage worth of shots, but they're only at 105 points. And again, it's a cheap filler unit for the army if they need it. And again, their damage output per point for what you're getting, it's 6 points of Rend 2 shooting, which is not, it's the same as Cruel Boys minus the Mortals, is pretty decent. So I don't think you're going to want to spam these or anything, far from it. But if you've got a hole to fill in the army, you've only got that 100 points, particularly if you're doing a shooting army, viable. I've ordered 1 unit of these to have them on the, in the box, able to, for some builds. And then we got Vigilors.
Probably work for you.
Well, yeah, make the points work for you, basically. Yeah, they're not stellar, but they have got 2 Rend, which is, relevant.
Yeah.
Vigilors are a new unit, so these are the Thunderstrike bow guys, and these are pretty interesting. They're at 195 points. They got a 4-up save. Their bow is 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 Rend, 1 damage, 18-inch range, a bit on the short side. If they do any wounds, though, the rest of your army gets +1 to hit wherever they shot. So you're obviously going to want some units of these to go with your crossbows and whatever else to shoot the primary target, at which point all your damage goes up. And really interestingly, these 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 Rend, 1 damage, and melee as well. So they're like a good melee profile. 195 points is a bit expensive to be throwing them into melee. But if you really need to clear a bunch of stuff off, they can shoot them 2 attacks and then charge, at which point you're getting 20 attacks out of a 200-point unit, which is pretty decent. Again, standard problems. It's got 10 wounds and it's at 195 points. Not a great place to be, but they can be battle line with the Knight Judicator as your general as well. I like them. Don't think they're stellar. I think you pretty much put them in all your armies, though, just because they give your entire army +1 to hit. And they give you a bit of shooting.
Cool.
Yeah, and they're new and they look cool.
Yeah, they do look cool.
The Vanguard Raptors with the crossbows that were spoiled, people went mad for these. Not entirely sure why. They're 240 points, 2 attacks, 3s and 2s, 2 Rend, 2 damage. And if they roll a 6 to hit, they do 2 mortals. They're decent, but 240 points. If they were the same as the Knight Judicators points, you would maybe see them as the alternative way of getting some really long range, high range shooting in. But 6 points of damage for 240 points, no matter how good the damage is just pushing it a little bit. Like the Knight Judicator would be if he didn't come with 3 Griff Hounds. He wouldn't be good enough either. But these are just a bit too expensive for me. I don't think they're quite good enough anymore. And the crossbow version's very similar, just not really good enough. Too easy to kill. Have to be too close. Have to be too close to shoot anything. Stormstrike Chariot is new. New unit. Quite cool. 165 points, 12 wounds and a 3-up save. 12-inch move. -1 to hit it if it made a charge move this turn. And when it charges, what you roll a number of dice equals your charge roll. Every 4 is immortal. Melee-wise, you can give them a bow, but you're probably going to give them the melee weapons most of the time, which gives them 10 points of 3s and 3s Rend 2 damage. and 3 points of 3s and 3s round 1 damage. So they're pretty great. Really.
Yeah, good MSU unit, aren't they? Again, they're costing pretty cheap, I think, for the wounds, for the save. We're talking 3+ save again on these still. So no shield in sight.
Access to 2 rend. Access to 2 rend attacks. Load the mortals when you charge them. These are good. Yeah, I really like these. I think this is a spammable make an army out of these units. I think you could run 10 of these or something, 9 of these, and some support characters. Definitely.
Yeah, I can see that.
I also like about these as well, if you're going to do a Scions of the Storm army and put stuff in the heavens, the stuff that you deploy on the table can just be like 3 of these, and they get there quick enough to support your stuff that drops as well. Turn 1, you drop your stuff. Turn 2, these come crashing in and do some extra stuff. And, 12 wounds, 3s, 165 points is all you want from most units, is enough wounds to make the unit not fall apart for its points value. And everything
they'll hide in cover dead easy as well, probably on the board, 2+ save without spending anything to do it. They'll just sit there in it.
Quite possibly. One thing they do
too many wounds for that. They've got too many wounds for that.
The 12, guarantees you're not getting a low drop army with these, because they only come in ones. You can't. They're single, so they only come in ones. So there's no way to get the drops down on them. So you're going to be a different kind of way of doing things if you're using these. But yeah, they're really good. I've ordered 3 of these.
You're not going to be 1, but you can still comfortably be 2, 3 probably.
Yeah, be 2 or 3. Yeah,
like 3 probably, because you need some more units if you span them. But yeah,
I've ordered 3 of these. I don't know. I don't really want to spam them, to be honest with you. That's not really the type of army I want to play. But I think having like 2 or 3 of them in an army to like bulk it out to give you that presence on the battlefield, and they just do good damage, and they're tough for the points. They move. A lot of the army doesn't move that well. Like, they're just good unit. Definitely worth buying some of those, I would say.
The clog things up, mate. Nightmare to get out the way. They're good.
Oh yeah, weird pattern emerging as well, where all the new stuff's good.
Pardon?
Weird pattern emerging where all the new stuff is good. It's a strange one, isn't it?
Who's that? Aether Wings went to 65 points.
Aether Wings went to 65. Definitely still usable, but you're not starting every army with 3 units of them now. It's just too many points. They also lost their interrupt charge to protect the Vanguard Raptors thing that they used to do as well, which is a bit of a shame, because they give Vanguard Raptors +1 to hit, and if they also had the prevent the charge thing, you could still maybe consider taking them. Might just about be a thing, but they're just too expensive now, really. So, plenty of armies where you haven't got the points for anything else but a unit of Aether Wings, and you're not sad to have the option to take a unit. Let's face it, 6 wounds that flies 12 inches for 65 points is still not a terrible investment. They're just not super incredible.
How much you like Vanguard Hunters that are next than that?
So Vanguard Hunters are, I think they're 140. I've forgotten. 125. Yeah, they're quite cheap as well. And they teleport, right? Such an incredibly powerful ability. And they're not bad either. Like, they've got decent attacks. 2 attacks each, 3s and 3s round 1, 2 shots, 4s and 4s round 1, and a 4-up save for 125 points. The battle line and Astral Templars, you could definitely see running 3 of them as your battle line, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could just wherever you want around the board, doing the in your deployment zone one for you.
Grabbing
see more. No idea if they'll make a list right, but I love them.
They're brilliant. Vanguard Paladors will skip over because they're too expensive. They're over 200 points, and you really want them for the teleporting thing, which the other ones are better. Griffhounds you can take as a unit. You're like 110 points for 6 of them, which you're not going to do. You're going to take the Knight and get 2 of them for free. The Prosecutors are good now. So these are just had lots of small stat buffs, and they've come down to like 110-ish points, depending on what you're taking. So they are... The Javelin ones are 6 wounds with a 3-up save. They don't do very much damage. They've got this new rule called Dispersed Formation, which is going to make people rage, I think. If it's got 2 to 5 models, it's coherent if every model is within 3 inches instead of 1 of each other. And if it's more than 5 models, it's basically coherent within 3 instead of 1. this is like acknowledgement of the fact that the coherency rules maybe were a little bit too naughty on small units. For me, and these have got it, and a lot of other units won't. These can also charge 3d6, and if you're Tempest Lords, you get to reroll one of those dice as well, which is pretty cool. You pick two. And the hammer versions, I actually like the hammer versions better, because the ranged attack on the javelin ones isn't very good. The hammer ones have got a 4-up save, but they come with shields. As long as half of them have got shields, they get 3-up as well. But they've got actual damage in melee. Like, you can put a grand weapon on the leader, so it's got 6 points of 3s and 3s for 1 damage, and hammers on the other ones. So they've got enough attacks to have a fight. 3 guys, 3-up saves, charging 18 inches. They fill a unit in your army. The battle line in Tempest Lords, they fill a spot when you've only got 100 points left. They move 12, fly around the battlefield and do stuff. I also like these as well for taking Unleash Hells, potentially, as well. If you're going to charge, like, it's 100 points that you lose, and they can fly, so they're always getting into the unit to stop the Unleash Hell, or eat the Unleash Hell, rather. And they got a 3-up save, so you never know. If it's not a mortal wounding Unleash Hell, they can survive. So these are great.
I rate them too. Yeah, like you say, the subtle changes are there. Now knowing they fit in, with the Tempest Lords, with the charge and everything. I think the 3d6 charge at 18 is phenomenal, particularly the reroll on a low one. Like, Unleash Hell, people think they've got an Unleash Hell coming, and they won't when you jump them with them. I think they really highlight. I agree. It's a shame that there's a 3+ unit, because I'm looking at the javelins, I'm like, 3+ save, and then the other one I think just has a little bit too much going for it, doesn't it?
Yeah. If it gets, it's coming out of Deep Strike with a 3d6 pick 2 charge, isn't it? You're like 75% roughly the odds are on hitting that without a reroll, just 75% off the bat. So you drop one of them. Even if all it does is just tie up a shooting unit, or you do it when they haven't got the command point, or when they need the command point elsewhere, and they burn it or whatever, it's just good. They're just a great unit now. Great to see them on the battlefield as well. Brilliant models.
They block a lot of space as well because of that dispersed formation rule. Which I think, in fairness, they've only put on like flying units with like massive wings and stuff like that. I wonder if it was like a weird bit of feedback about how you could actually play the models on the table. And
that's a fair shout. Like, I don't think you could put these within 1 inch of each other, because the wings are like ridiculous on them.
Yeah, they're silly. It's silly.
Yeah.
I've played with your ones a few times, and they are annoying to move around. So that's quite cool.
Yeah. So Annihilators have gone up to 200 points, and I think their abilities are great. All the mortals they do is great, but ultimately 6 wounds for 200 points. They got a 2-up save, which is just crazy. But in the current meta with mortals, I don't think it's a good idea to take lots of those, personally.
Maybe Andraster, like putting them back, and you're the guy, and you're leaving the one-on-one wound, all that.
And the army pre this book was Andraster, a Lord Imperator to make them drop were in 7, and then like 3 units of these, and then some other stuff or whatever. That's obviously quite cool, but I'm just not sure it's a gimmick army, right? It looks cool because these guys look badass, but it's a gimmick army, and I don't think it's a good competitive one. We have got the option to equip them with Meteoric Grand Hammers now, though. So these lose a point to save, which to some extent does lose a little bit of what's good about them. But on the other hand, if you're just going to consider them throwaway, maybe not so much. They've got 3 attacks, 3s and 2s, 2 Ren 3 damage each. That's like 27 points of Ren 2 damage coming down, in addition to all the mortals that they're doing. So these are 240, though. It's like a big price jump over the other ones. I could certainly see running them as like a mini what's his name, Celestin Prime, a mini less reliable Celestin Prime, because them hammers are nuts. But realistically, they're probably a bit too gimmicky to be great. I'm still buying some. I don't care. I'm going to play that army out of one day or somewhere where you just drop loads of them in instead. But they're cool. And they're all Battle Line and Knights Excelsior, because they're both Paladin units. They're Battle Line. Now we're going to talk about the old Paladin units, though, which have had quite a lot of changes, which makes them good. Now, there's still multiple different kinds. Their rules have got a lot less complicated. The best ones are Protectors. So these guys have got 5 attacks each, 3s and 3s, 2 rend, 1 damage. And you come in 5s and you get 225 points for 5 of them. So that's 25 rend 2 attacks for 225 points. 3 wounds each, so 15 wounds in the unit. When they've got the glaives, as long as at least half the unit's got glaives, they get +1 to saves. So 225 points for 15 wounds of 2+ save guys that come with 25 rend 2 attacks. You can give them the Star Soul Maces as well, which is on a 2, they do D3 mortal wounds. So you can give 2 of them Star Soul Maces, still keep your save bonus, which does slightly less damage overall because their end's so good. Even against like hard targets, it does slightly less damage, but it's mortals and it's guaranteed. These are brilliant. Like, Battle Line and Knights Excelsior.
Yeah. So you said these were 5 for 225?
5 models for 225, yeah. So 15 wounds. And they're winning Andraster's ability to bring them back alive as well because they got 3 wounds or less each.
Yeah. I was about to mention that myself. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So you think these are the best out of all these ones, do you?
I think these are the best, yeah. They've also got Bravery 7, and she makes them immune to Battleshock, which is another reason you should run out with them. But yeah, I think these are the best, like, by far.
They're cheaper than the other ones?
They're all slightly different points. I don't remember all the points costs of all the other ones. But they're 225. Decimators are 215, so the other ones are slightly cheaper. Retributors are 235. Yeah, so they're in the middle of the points costs, basically.
Okay, and can you remind me, one of them, they were all battle line in a certain one, but wasn't one of them battle line in like a different chamber, or am I losing my mind?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
I don't believe any. They're just all Battle Line and Knights Excelsior, I think.
Okay. I might just not know the units' names, so.
Yeah, maybe, because they sound the same as the Dracoths a lot of the time. So the guys with the hammers are also okay. Like, they've got 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 rend, 2 damage each. So they've got more raw damage, and if they roll 6 to hit, they do 2 mortals. So they hit quite hard. And they're only 215, I think, but it's that 2+ save that really makes the other one good. Like, really. But I mean, they're both playable. The one that used to do loads of attacks against big units just gets +2 attacks now, which makes it kind of crap. But those 2 are really good.
We've got the Praetors, who are the Protect Them ones, which are fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah, so the Praetors have gone up in points as well, weirdly. I don't think it's needed. They're 165 now. And it's been confirmed you can't use wards at the same time as using their bodyguard ability, but they do allow you to bounce some wounds around. It's 9 wounds for 165 points, 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 2 damage. They're not on special, but mostly they can bodyguard anything. It doesn't have to. It can be a Star Drake. It can be a giant dragon. They can bodyguard anything as long as they were in 3 inches. And because there's so much healing, Cycle of the Storm, Andraster, the healing, like all this stuff going on in this army, you can bounce some wounds onto these and maybe like lose a model or 2, but keep the unit alive, and then take some on the hero. Then in your turn, Andraster brings back one of these, you heal the hero, like you got loads of stuff going on to make other people's wounds inefficiently allocated and like really maximize your healing, which I don't think you get enough. I've got an army written out that does it. I don't think you get enough wounds in the army to make it good enough, but it's certainly a really interesting concept. Like messing with other people's attacks is kind of cool. The Storm Drake Guard. So these are the new guys, Dragon Riders. These are good. These are 280 points, 285 points for 2 of them. Move 12, 9 wounds, 3 up save. They're monsters. They've got the same Draconic Flame Stream as the hero has. They've got the Draconic Fangs, which is 4 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 rend, 2 damage. They got a lance or a sword. The lance is 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 rend, 2 damage on the charge. So that's 14 points of damage per model, plus the fire breath. They've got Disperse Formation as well. They got ignore spells on a 4-up. And then once a game, in your hero phase, the unit can move 12. And if it's within 12 of any enemy units, you roll a dice on a 2+, it can attempt to charge. I'm not really sure what the use of that is, but you get 2 goes at charging. Redeploy, I had to go and check. Redeploy you can do anytime, not just in the movement phase. when the enemy ends a move, so it doesn't get round redeploy and it doesn't get round unleash hell. So wait, does it get round unleash hell? Because unleash hell's done at the end of the charge phase, isn't it? Or is it at the end of a charge?
That was what I thought this was about, but I made a presumption on that, really.
Yeah, I realized I checked redeploy, but I didn't double check unleash hell's wording. And if unleash hell is at the end of the charge phase, not at the end of a charge, then this could be really good. But it depends, can you still unleash hell even if these charged in the hero phase? I don't know. So these are 285 points for 18 wounds of 3-up save flying dragons with loads of abilities. These are awesome. Their battle line.
Yeah, these are fantastic, right?
Yeah. Their battle line, if you're generals,
charge, they can fly around the.
Yeah.
They can deep strike and charge. They can fly around the board and charge. Threat range is massive.
You'll be -1 to wound them.
Save start.
Yeah, -1 to wound them from the Lord of the Celestial Menagerie ability. Once a game, they're going to shoot an extra time in the shooting phase. These are just really good. These are like
really well costed as well.
Yeah,
they look awesome.
You can run a unit of one of them, which is also really nice for 145 points, as I mentioned before. If you've got the hero, which you will have, it will be your general. You can run a unit of one of them as well. So you get one that goes around and just, does slightly things where you don't have to commit a full unit to it as well. You are going to bleed monster points when you play this army because you're going to lose one every turn. But you're also going to gain all the monster points all the time. And the models are just really good. So you're going to have just an army of these. The army is just going to be a load of these, basically, and the generals.
Yeah, you probably have to play from like negative 2, maybe, a battle tactics part. But if they don't kill any turn 1, only -1, so I don't know if you can manage that, but
you still deep strike them as well.
They probably won't get them late on if you wipe them out, because it's not like this isn't an aggressive army. They might not have the turns to kill these.
And they're tough. They're tough as well. You can deep strike them as well. Don't forget, you can deep strike and use their fire breath if they need to, just to get to something 12-inch. Yeah, just a really good unit. When they come out, they're going to be very popular, rightly so, I think. And we've got Dracothian Guard. These are also really good. These are the Dracoths, the classic ones, like the Knight Dracoth guys. Notably, the Fulminators. So these have all been buffed. They've all got +1 wound per model. They're all now a 3-up save, and they've all now got Rend 2 everywhere. Fulminators. The Dracoths are 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 Rend 2 damage each, which is a nice profile. The Fulminators are 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2 Rend, 1 damage, but 3 damage on the charge. 21 damage per model at Rend 2. That's 42 damage, and it's a 230-point unit. Bit light on the wounds, 12 wounds, very light on the wounds, but they have got a 3-up save, and they've still got the ranged attack that does mortals as well. These are really good if you can deliver them, is the thing. If someone doesn't shoot them before they go. They're really good in Cities of Sigmar, though. You can deep strike them, and then they shoot, and then they do their free move with the command ability, and then they charge into something and just absolutely murder it, like a unit of 4 of them. Just, kill. They almost killed two units of these, almost kills a giant in one attack with no buffs. Does 33 wounds on average. So
nice.
These are great. Really good. The other one's not quite as good because these just get so much on the charge, and if they don't charge, they're nowhere near as good. There is the concussors as well that are 3 attacks, 2 damage, and they do mortals on a 6, which are okay as well. But really, them Fulminators are where it's at. And also, if you take a Lord Celestins on one of these, you can take these in a unit of 1, just like the Stormdrakes. Which you're probably not going to do.
Because of the kit build.
Yeah, there's the Lord Celestins.
That's what makes it obvious now.
So it's a cool option. That's basically the end of the War Scrolls, the unit War Scrolls. Quite a lot to go through there. Quite a bit of stuff. Only last thing I'll mention is the endless spells all went up in points and are still not very good. Deus Arcanum, which used to be kind of cool for cheap to make your stuff fly, is 60 points now. So you're not going to take it. And the Comet no longer only works when it lands and then doesn't do anything anymore and doesn't do mortals anymore now. So it lands and does all its mortals, but then it doesn't do mortals every turn. after that. So the Comet's probably never getting played now either. Still gives Wizards -1 to cast, but that's it. So yeah, overall, I don't know that there's loads of cohesive armies that do incredibly amazing things outside of just spamming the Drakes, the new Draconids, but there's loads of options in that book. They've made so many War Scrolls playable and good, and different ways to play as well, with your deep striking and your or walking up the board with all your guys counting as 3 models. Loads of saves. Like, I know we talk about mortals a lot, and I worry about mortals and shooting a lot, but that's not every army. And against armies that are just trying to hit you in melee, your whole army's got a 3-up save. It's really good. Good balance on the book.
It is. I don't know. That's like easy to get excited about dragons, right? I think there's some, they're clearly good, and you can obviously make some big up builds, and it all just comes straight dead obvious, just unpack and play in it, and get on with it. And I think that'll have a big impact on the meta. I think the rest of it feels like a lot less than what they had before, though. Like, I'm sure, like, mathematically, some units are better. It feels like a big blow to guys now, right?
Yeah.
More and more and more and more, and the new ones are always the best. And but some of the old ones are good for some numbers reasons,
specific
right?
things.
Not for some interesting thing they do or anything like that. Obviously,
the army's
quite
fairly
a lot less.
basic, like, in what it does ultimately. But a lot of Age of Sigmar armies are, a lot of the stuff where we're like, this army does cool stuff is actually just some combination of buffs that you just say, I'm doing this, and then they do mortals. It's not that much more clever, I don't think, in a lot of ways. But most of my armies I've sort of converged on the same few models, though. Right, so I've got lots of armies with Judicators with crossbows in. I've got lots of armies with Vindicators in. Everything's got some combination of Andraster, Bastion Karthlos, Celestin Prime, Lord Arcanums on Griff Chargers, Knight Incanters, same heroes, over and over again. And it's just like, but what I like is you can pick and choose, do you want an army full of Vindicators where you're going to try and make sure they don't die and walk up the board? Do you want an army full of shooting, you're going to deep strike? Do you want half of each? Because you can do that. Walk a load of guys up the board and deep strike some stuff just to shoot their shooting off the board, so they've got to come and fight your melee guys. You got lots of different ways to set up the heroes. You got these ways to try and, like, use Andraster to just get loads of value every turn, like returning loads of guys to MSU units that are fighting everywhere. There's quite a lot of different ways you can play it, just changing up a few things to change the way the army works. And then obviously you can spam chariots, obviously you can spam storm drakes, but there's loads. And I don't think there's no obvious build that jumps out, right, other than the spam ones. There's lots of different, like, ways you can build it, which is interesting, and I think they're all good. I think they're capable of winning tournaments for sure. Not the best army, especially if you play in the missions where you're not allowed to deep strike, which I think are stupid things that shouldn't exist really, but it makes it hard to build them armies where you're deep striking a load of shooting if one game you're just going to lose because all your stuff's out of range. But yeah, and a big mix of factions as well for me. I've got ones where I'm running Knights Excelsior so I can use Protect the Battle Line. I've got ones where I'm running Hammers of Sigmar because I'm using Bastion Karthlos mostly. And I've got ones where I'm using Celestial Vindicators just for the rerolls as well. But ones where I'm using Tempest Lords so I can take Prosecutors as battle line, keep my battle line costs to a minimum, get those skirmisher units that are able to fly around whilst doing something else more expensive, like monsters or whatever. There's a lot in there. There's a lot of armies. It's a player's army, as they say, isn't it? Loads of options.
Yeah. So have you got any lists you want to highlight them?
Yeah, I've got a few. I've got a few to go through. As I say, it's hard to do talking about lists in a lot of these armies because there's just so many combinations. So it just ends up being the ones that I picked in particular. But one of the armies I want to just highlight for the sort of bouncing around the mortals, bouncing around the wounds is Scions of the Storm. Well, you can play as Scions of the Storm or Stormkeep. Actually, Hammers of Sigmar with Call for Aid, which is the command ability that brings back a unit of Vindicators, and it's Bastion Carthalos, Andraster, Celestin Prime. It's 1,000 points on 3 mega heroes, a Lord Arcanum on a Griff Charger, 4 units of Vindictors and 2 units of Praetors. Point of this being, we're just going to bounce wounds all over the place, right? We're going to Cycle of the Storm some. We're going to bounce stuff onto the Praetors, then we're going to bring them back to life to maximize keeping stuff alive while they're trying to kill our heroes, and then we're going to drop a Celestin Prime and do some stuff as well. It probably hasn't really got enough wounds for everything not to just fall over and die, but it illustrates that concept, and you can do it a bit lighter. You can do it with this is a Hallowed Knights version now with Guard of Steel Soul in. So Andraster, Guard of Steel Soul, and a unit of Praetors. So you've still got that little thing going on. The Praetors are going to try and keep them alive. You're going to make sure the Praetor unit doesn't die. Andraster's going to bring some back, keep Guardus around for as long as possible. And then this has got 3 units of Vindicators, which is going to be your thing that's going to form your castle with those foot heroes. And then 4 units of Judicators with crossbows and a unit of Vigilors. So you got your little castle that's really hard to kill. That's pretty decent in melee. It's got the wards, and you've got some shooting stuff you can drop on people as well at the same time. Obviously, that's like a modular army. You can take the shooting out and just put a whole load more foot guys in. So you've got this massive pile of Vindictors with ward saves as well. So that's another kind of thing you can do. My spam Vindictors army is Hammers of Sigmar. So I've got, again, Andraster and a Lord Celestant. So Lord Celestant being the ticking time bomb you hold over their head while you're trying to just sit on the board. At some point, you're going to drop this bomb on them. But this one's got a Lord Castellan for the +1 save with a Mirror Shield and Envoy of the Heavens, which is where you give the +1 save out when stuff dies. So you can't shoot him. He's giving out loads of saves. A Knight Incanter with Starfall, so you get your Mystic Shield in there, basically. And a Lord Arcanum on Griff Charger, also with Starfall, and as a bit of a wild card for the teleports and Cycle of the Storm. And then this has got 25 Vindictors and 10 Liberators in it. So it's got 70 wounds of 3+ save stuff. One of them units of 5 is going to come back to life. Andraster can bring loads of them back. And obviously, we've got the healing, we've got the Castellan, we've got loads of saves going on as well. And that is similar to the Nurgle army in a lot of ways. You're just going to walk up the board and sit on objectives, and all the guys count as 3. And just give people a really as hard a time as possible shifting you. Difference in this being, obviously, it's not as tough as the Nurgle, but it counts as more models, does more damage, and you've got the Celestin to hold over their head. While they normally, when you play Nurgle, the opponent just does what they want and tries to figure out a way to kill all your Nurgle stuff, where you can't do that when there's a Celestin threatening to come down and get in your back line and kill all your important toys at some point. So I really like that army. That's the army I'm going to play next week for practice. Is that one just with lots of men? And then I think that's pretty cool. You can do a similar thing to that with Guard of Steel Soul. You just switch him in, and if they shoot him with everything, he dies. Sure, not every army can do that though. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking at. You notice I haven't got any dragon based armies in there. I think the Draconith based army is very obvious, right? You're just going to run as many of them as you can, easily, because they're battle line and everything. I did build some armies with the 600 point dragons in, but I couldn't find one that I liked, because although I like the melee 600 point dragon, there's no army for me. It's the hard thing. When you're like, this model's really good, but there's no actual way you can see it working. Because it can't charge out a deep strike reliably is the first thing. So Tempest Lords makes it a bit better, because you've got your 2d6 and you're going to keep one of the dice and try to get him to charge. But if you do it and you don't charge, you're just sitting there and asking to just be dead before he gets to do anything. You can deep strike some Praetors with him to try and keep him alive, but then it's a 765 point model. That's not worth them points. So there undoubtedly are armies with them, but the armies I like have really converged on either lots of Judicators with crossbows deep striking, or and some Vigilors as well to give them them +1s to hit, or lots of Vindicators with the same sort of character setup. But there's lots you can do outside of that, as we've talked about, as we've gone through with the Paladins and stuff. So I like it. It's a good book. It's not the top book. It's not going to be the top book, and it will undoubtedly be a book that gets surpassed a little bit as time goes on, as always happens with these early books. But I think I think it will stay relevant, more relevant than a Stormcast book ever has before, probably. Because anytime mortal wound spam is not the thing anymore or whatever, these are just going to be crazy. You know, like, and the deep striking guns are really good, and the saves are just good. It's like a good solid army now, I think.
Yeah, no, that's good. Like, maybe if the dreaded save stacking drops away, you know, these gain as well from having, you know, a really high base armor save as well.
Yeah.
I think the dragons are gonna be really impactful at launch, though. You know, on the meta for all the competitive people. I think they'll be around
the
a lot.
The Draconets, the Dragon Riders, you mean? Not the big dragons. Yeah, for sure. Like you know, I mean, you can fit quite a lot of them in an army.
Like 6 in a leader or something.
Yeah, they're going to fly. Yeah, six. You can fit 5 units in a leader, basically. So they're going to fly up turn 1. They're going to fire breath some unit off the board, basically, and then they're going to charge. They've got loads of buffs. They're not easy to kill for their points. You know, they're good, and they're not amazing in melee, but they're good enough in melee. You know, and behind them you can fly. This is one of the few armies I had Ether Wings in, actually. Was, I think, is 5 units of those and a champion, and then it ended up with 2 units of Ether Wings to follow them up and take the objectives as well. You can also use Night Judicators and just have some range support to go with the fire attacks as well. So yeah, they're going to be really good, and they will make a big impact on the meta because you can make them 1-drop with no problem.
Yeah, so, they might be another one of those armies that it's like, you know, how do you play against that? How do you play against Gargants?
Yeah.
I think there's getting to be quite a few
very different armies.
Very popular.
Yeah. Dealing with 140 wound Gargants and Archeon with the same list is a thing that, and Lumineth shooting you, is 3 things that are all so different. It's very difficult to do.
And now 12 dragons charge you turn 1. You know,
it's like, and fire breath mortals.
Loads of mortal shooting as well.
Yeah. Interesting times for Age of Sigmar.
They do loads. You say they move in, they do mortal wound breath, they charge, they stomp on you for loads of mortal wounds. It goes on and on with them, doesn't it? So
yeah, it's good. They do good stuff. Yeah.
Rules. Woo.
There's a lot.
Well, Sal, should we? Anything else? Are we going to wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up. I think it's obviously quite a long book, that a lot of war scrolls to go through, lots of options and everything. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoys playing with that book. I know I will. Loads of armies you can build in there as well. Like, will be for a long time. I think, you know, at least decent, whereas Stormcast normally go to trash tier really quickly. I don't think that'll happen with this book. It's a better book and interesting indicator of things to come with the way the allegiance abilities are done and all that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's nice to be reading some new books again as well. And hope everyone's enjoyed it.
It's nice that there is quite a bit of life breathed into some of the old stuff, because we did talk about a few of the pretty old units there positively as well. I know we're all banging on about dragons, like, but certainly like quite a lot of the older stuff there. So that's nice, because there's always tons of people with those armies that don't. So.
Oh yeah, sweet. Yeah, absolutely.
Good. All right, well, thank you very much for listening or watching this, however you decided to consume it. You know, at this point, you're released on a podcast. It was released on our YouTube channel, Just Play Tabletop Wargaming. If you're watching on Just Play Tabletop Wargaming, our podcast is called Just Saying. You can find that in all your favourite ways to consume podcasts. So check us out on there as well if listening in your ears is your thing, because this video is not exactly a very visual video. You're particularly attracted to one of our faces,
which wouldn't be incorrect.
And again, you know, look, thanks very much for anyone who has supported us at justplaygames.uk. who picked up any of the pre-orders from just past for the books and that. We've still got it all on pre-order if you haven't made your decision yet. And we'll have all the Cruel Boys and new stuff going up next week. We've got a Cruel Boys Battletome review getting recorded now as well. So that'll be out very shortly if it's not already out while you're listening to this. So yeah, grab them. Dragons, they're coming. Grab them from us. We really appreciate it. If you have enjoyed our content, check it out. And again, if you're watching, give us a like, subscribe. Thank you very much for joining me today, Ian, and all your info. It was all you there, mate. So thanks so much for your loads of it. It was very useful for people. A nice one.
Yeah, thanks very much. And yeah, see you later, everyone.
See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.